Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the Know Your Gear QA live podcast. Uh, number, I gotta say the number 247, January 21st, 2022. Anyways, how's everybody doing? Today's show, I just want to let you guys know, I don't know if I'm having a sinus problem. I think that's what I'm having. Is sometimes I have sinuses real bad to certain types of the year. Where I live, sinuses are usually a problem because I live in the desert, and it's a fake desert. In other words, it looks like California here where I live because everybody brought all these plants, and so sometimes the weather is not really really good for the plants. The reason I'm telling you that is that I just want to prepare you in case I have to sneeze or anything. I will mute, and I have a screen to go to. I'm just preparing everybody. So, show must go on, as they say. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. And if you're new to the live show, thank you for joining the live show. If you're watching the rebroadcast, thank you for watching the rebroadcast. And if you're trying to get my question to me or subject to me, you can put a question mark first so I know it's directed towards me, or you can also do super chats, or you can become a channel member. All these things kind of get you highlighted here so I can see you guys. Of course, I'm just trying to find the best questions I can talk about or subjects, which is always a nice thing to talk about as well. Something else to talk about is we've seen a lot of really talented musicians, actors, and comedians pass away recently. In fact, it's getting to the point where it's getting a little too numerous to mention, of course. And some of the things I caution my own self about when I, state, or say who's passed this week. Sometimes I feel bad if I miss anyone. So that's what I want to let you guys know. I heard Louis Anderson has passed away from cancer. Obviously, Meatloaf has passed. Howard Dumble passed away this week. And so I just want to give, recognition to those people, but also let you know that if I'm forgetting anybody like Bob Saget, I mean, it just gets a little crazy lately. It's been a little crazy. So probably why we need to have, the show. maybe some people need some cheering up. So we've even had some in our family, some closer to home losses, which are, so it's just been a crazy week that week. But of course they will all be missed. Very talented people. And it's never good when we lose the people that have changed our lives and made them better. It's never good when we lose anybody, but those people kind of spread that I don't want to say tentacle, but kind of like this tentacles out. You know what I mean? They touched so many people, musicians, players, comedians, actors, you name it. So yeah, SV says, put Eddie Vedder in a case. It's getting, it's a little much. I think that's why I'm talking about it right now. I just feel like it's a little much, isn't it? So we'll talk about guitars. We'll talk about things because obviously we have those other things on our mind. And that's today's show is going to be about the things we love and the things we get to enjoy. So let's do that. So anyways, let's get started. Couple things. What else? What do I want to talk about this week? What do you guys want to talk about? Greg says, have I heard of Nags guitars? I just bought a Cheyenne for $8,000. I think it's Canadian CAD, right? Is that Canadian? I owned a Nags. I did a review of it. I loved it. It was a Sovereign, and absolutely love it. I want a Hunga or Hunga. I think it's Hunga. I believe they're all named after rivers or something like that. Absolutely love them. In fact, what's nice about Nags is those of us that, that lately have, so much Silver Sky talk, especially the SE. The SE has an 8.5-inch radius fretboard. So does most or some of the Nags. That's the first time I ever played an 8.5 was a Nags guitar, and love them. I really, like I said, I really want a Hunga. They're just, not only are they very expensive, they're just very hard to find right now. And that's the tricky part. It's a really weird time right now for high-end guitars because there's so few selections. That's the trick. When you're spending that kind of money, you don't want to feel like you got what you got. You know what I mean? You want to feel like you got a choice. And so sometimes if you're looking at the high-end guitars, if you guys are in the high-end guitar market, some of you are, you guys know what I'm talking about right now. you go and look out in the high-end guitar market, and there's like 4 or 5 really expensive guitars to choose from, and sometimes one to choose from, if that's even a choice. And and it's like not what you love. And man, when you at your top dollar, and I should really just say this for everybody, because it doesn't matter what the amount is to everyone. When you're at the top of your spending limit, you kind of want to feel like you got choices. You kind of want to feel like it opens up. The experience opens up. It gets better. I get more choices. And lately, the higher you go in the price categories, the lower choices you get. It seems like the only choices you get, real choices, if you stay in the inexpensive guitars. There's more of them out there. So, and then I saw Brian was saying Nags equals even higher in PRS. Well, Joe Nags, where he comes from, was he kind of pioneered and ran the PRS. Rand? Did I say Rand? He ran the PRS custom shop, and of course he came up with the Mira, which is one of my favorite PRSs. And my buddy Larry Mitchell, who's an amazing guitar player, is a endorsed artist with Nags and has his own signature guitar. His guitar is like $6,000+, but beautiful guitar. I played his, and also another model that was his model, but not his personal one. And fantastic guitars. I will tell you this, and this is one of those things, and I obviously mean no disrespect. Sometimes it's not that I'm worried I upset anybody. I just obviously don't want to disrespect anyone. Me personally, I love Nags a lot. I like the whole story of Nags. I like the Nags company. I like the Nags guitars. I've played a bunch of Nags, and like I've said, they're on my radar as one to get. Like I said, the one I bought for the channel so I could review it. And then, although I love the way it looked, it just wasn't exactly what I was looking for. Like I said, I decided from that and playing other ones, I wanted the Honga one. The thing about Nags, the only negative I have about Nags, and it's not negative, it's just something to say out there. I really think the S2s by PRS are like Nags. Like that's what I really learned from playing Nags, was the S2s feel exactly the same to me as Nags does. And they got the arm carves I like and the feel I like. And they're a lot of times the look I like, which is more subdued and less so crazy with the, flame tops. If you notice, you don't see a whole lot of beautiful, gorgeous flame tops in my collection. I'm not really into the exotic wood tops. And I love the S2s. That's the problem I have. Is same thing with PRS cores. Don't get me wrong. I like PRS. Obviously, I like all those guitars, but I really like S2s. Some of you guys, some of you guys, don't love the S2s. Some of you guys love the S2s. I've spent today playing guitar today. I played all day. I played my S2. So that's the guitar I like for some reason. What else? What else do we got? We got, hold on. I'm just reading through some comments. Since we're on the subject, I want to stay on kind of the high-end guitar subjects that we're on. Eric was saying, I've been liking the Collings guitars. I love Collings guitars again. Hard to lay out that kind of money for an instrument. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. Look, and again, I like to bring this in because you can bring everybody into this discussion, which is, it doesn't matter if you're talking about a $500 guitar or a $5,000 guitar. If you are buying at the top end of your comfort zone or what you're willing to spend, and that's, like I said, it's always about what you're really willing to spend more so than what you have. Because you could, I have friends that play guitars that have a lot of money and they still won't buy crazy exotic guitars because they just don't find it worth it. And I have friends that are, I don't think have any real business financially buying the expensive guitars, but they love them. So they buy them. And even if it means like I said, their rent's late. So if that makes them happy, that makes them happy too. The point is, it's really, like I said, I've learned it's a comfort thing. You got to be comfortable with it. And when you're buying in the top end of your purchasing realm, it gets a little tough. And Collings and stuff, I mean, those are on everybody's high-end purchasing realm. You know what I mean? It's just expensive guitars, but beautiful. So it's tough. All right. Yeah, Matt says, Collings, everything is bigger in Texas, including the prices. Yeah, the great thing about those brands, though, is that I can tell you playing Collings, I'm trying to think of others. Nags, that'd be another one I would put in that category. I'm trying to think of somebody else that's maybe not like the Strat guys. Like there's a lot like Nash and Sir and stuff that are great, but they really lean into the Strat Telly thing, where Collings and Nags kind of do more of the hollow bodies, more of the single cut style guitars, kind of stuff. And one thing I can tell you is I've never felt anything that felt like a hype to me. Like I never picked up those guitars and went, oh, there's nothing special about this. They feel very special. They're just very expensive. So, and then Brian's saying he likes his Fano. The Fanos are nice. I have a Fano, but it's an older one. It's not from the new Fano company. So he says a high-end guitar without a high-end price. Yeah, yes and no. I agree, but I mean, it's still high-end price. I mean, they're in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. I know that Fano has an import line now. I'm pretty sure that's what I understand, but I haven't tried it. Ben Coombe says, Heritage. Heritage is great too. Heritage to me is different. That's a different, really interesting, Ben, that you mentioned Heritage. So this is an interesting discussion. I want to kind of go down this road a little bit. See, I don't find, and this is where, again, it's just my mind and maybe, looking at them all day. I don't find like Collings and Nags as like Gibson-esque copies, even though Collings flat out has like guitars that look like ES335s and stuff. I just kind of find them as like, they're not trying to be like those brands. They're trying to actually differentiate themselves as being higher end than those brands. Kind of like Nags and, same with PRS. I always felt like PRS isn't trying to copy Gibson so much as just like, I'm going to build a better Gibson than Gibson. Again, I'm not saying that they are better. I'm just saying like that's the vibe they try to put out. You know what I mean? I want to do it better than this person, than this company. Not like it, and Heritage to me is like if you think they're better than Gibson, that's fine. But I'm just saying that's not what they're really going after. They're going after like a Gibson, right? Right? It's like a Gibson, and very good guitars as well. Okay, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I was reading a question, but I don't understand the question. Flip It says, and I apologize if you see me, I got the drops. Trust me, I was halfway through today. I was deciding if I was even going to do the show. I'll make the show, no problem. I just want to make sure that I don't cough and sneeze at you guys. Flip It said, hey, Phil, are you familiar with the Roadie tuners to tune guitars? I am familiar with the unit. It's a Roadie tuner. It looks like a little teeny, I want to say drill, but it's a little teeny handheld unit that you put on the tuning peg of a guitar and it tunes up the guitar for you. Looks really, really cool. I thought at one time they reached out to me. They were one of those brands for sure that probably reached out to me, and then whatever I sent back, they just didn't dig it, so they didn't do it. A lot of times with that, I don't remember specifically what I asked for. I could have asked for a free unit. I could have asked for ones for giveaway. I could have told them they have to sponsor a video or something. I'm not sure. Usually stuff like that. If there's anything like that where it's different and odd, and I know I'm going to spend a lot of time in it, I kind of sometimes load my interaction with that company into the whole, okay, if I'm going to spend 2 or 3 days trying to figure this thing out and get with it, then, can we do something cool? I don't remember much. I just remember never hearing from them again. And I could have just said, hey, send one out. So the YouTube gig is essentially this. It's funny. I was talking to a company this week, and it's a friend of mine, and they were saying that a lot of the YouTube channels don't respond to emails. And I hear this all the time from companies. They're saying, they send out 50 emails to YouTube channels, and they never get any responses back. And I always kind of chuckle in my head, and I go, oh, yeah. But in my back of my head, I'm also thinking like, yeah, but I could tell you on a given month, and I mean month, not year, not years. On a given month, I can have about 6 or 7 companies that reach out to me, and I respond to them and to never get a response. So I don't understand. It's just, this is how this industry works. I guess it's how the world works. Joseph says, hey, Phil, would you recommend to upgrade a standard Fender plastic nut to a bone nut? Yeah, of course. Why not? I say that, but, excuse me, I say that, but when you say Fender plastic nut, I don't know what you mean. Like, there's different kinds of plastic nuts. Like, I don't hate the ones that come on the Made in Mexico Fenders, the plastic nuts that are on there. Those are fine. If they're cut right, they feel right, they're fine. Would they be what I would have put on? No, I would have put a Bone or Graphtec or something like that. But do I replace them? If they're causing an issue, I replace them. It's like the old saying: if it's not fixed, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, if there's no issue with it, I don't really change it. However, some of the lower priced, like Squier guitars, the plastic on there are so bad that even if it is working fine, it's probably not going to last a long time because it wears pretty quickly. Sometimes they go with too soft of a plastic. But again, it depends on what you're using it for. One of the things about stuff like that you have to consider is the gigging logic. If you're gigging and you think you're going to have a problem, or it's potentially a problem pops up, then go ahead and solve it now. Don't have the problem in front of an audience. It's going to be bad for you. It's going to be bad for them. However, if you're at a bedroom all the time, just playing for yourself, wait till the problem happens. Not gonna. So unless you just got money to fix things, then fix it. Oh, okay. High Desert Hoodad said, got my nut with the 0 fret from Stu Mac. We'll install it this weekend. Great. Can't wait to hear what you think. We talked about that last week, that they had that. Okay, hold on. Oh man, let's see. I feel like I'm moving a little slow, and let me jump into these questions real quick as I try not to crunch on this thing. Are you guys when you do cough drops or throat lozenges, sometimes I do the fisherman's friend and honey lozenges and stuff. My habit that I have been just had forever is whenever I have something like this, when it gets to the end, I just crunch it, which has never been a problem until I had a show where a mic's next to my mouth. All right, let's get into this. Dan says, what does Dan say? Dan says, with the price of everything going up, would it be better to buy later if prices drop, or buy now while stuff is in stock? Look, that's what I like to call hedging your bet, right? You have to hedge your bet. Everybody has to hedge their bet in a situation like this. No one knows the future, obviously. We don't know if prices are going to drop or they're going to go up. We don't know. We're all just guessing. So you have to do your best guess too. What I would tell you is this. What I wouldn't do, so let me give you the yes and the no of that question, because that's really where I want the answer to be. Would I, if I was going to buy something new right now, and I think the core of your question is, should you buy it now or wait till later if the prices drop? If it's new, I wouldn't wait for the prices to drop. I would just assume the prices will stay the same or go up. There would be no benefit. Now, that being said, if you're not in a hurry for the product, maybe poke around, see what's out there. Maybe wait to see if there's a dealer willing to give you a deal. There's things like that. But I don't know if I would wait to see if prices come down. I don't believe that's what's going to happen with new product. Used product, though, I think we've hit an all-time high with it, and it looks like it's been coming down consistently. I still see people asking crazy stuff, but I don't see it selling for that. And so on used gear, if you're trying to hold out and see if the prices come down, you could do that as well to see what happens with used gear. But new gear, I wouldn't expect it to come back down. The thing I will tell you, though, this is the important part, is that especially because of COVID, and since COVID, I should say, there's so much of this secondhand, resale thing that's going on. Secondhand being, buying and flipping, I should say, right? I just saw one today. Somebody has a Silver Sky SE. Think about this. This is why it's important to pay attention. Somebody has on Reverb right now. Hope they're not watching, because I just hate the idea that they're one of my audience members. There's somebody on Reverb right now, and they listed a Silver Sky in Dragon Fruit for $1,100, $100 shipping. Right? Because they're like, oh, you can't get one. They're going to put a premium on. By the way, if you want a Silver Sky SE in Dragon Fruit, I saw that there's one in stock at Rainbow Guitars down in Tucson, Arizona. If you go to their website right now, whichever, it's like a 7-pounder too, because they list the weight. If you go to rainbowguitars.com, right? Rainbow Guitars in Tucson, Arizona, click on there. It shows that it's in stock. It says it's in stock, ready to ship. I have no reason to doubt what they said, but I hope it's correct. $849, right? I don't know if it charges you sales tax because I'm in Arizona. So if I was to buy it, it would charge me. But my point is, there it is. Somebody is trying to get the top dollar on a used piece of gear they know is hard to find, and yet there's a dealer somewhere sitting there with one. So what I'm basically getting to with your question is when it comes to waiting, I wouldn't. If it's new, I wouldn't wait. If you want it, I don't think the price is going to come down. If it's used, maybe wait it out and see what happens. Again, you're taking a chance, but at least it's a chance that makes sense. And not that you asked this question, but I want you to be aware of it. If it's one of those situations where there's just no product and somebody's trying to basically flip it for a higher price, do not do that stuff. I think that stuff is dumb. So that's up to you guys, but I don't know. Very few times should you ever do that. And if there was a time to basically pay the premium for a piece of gear that somebody's basically trying to charge you way more for, maybe and only maybe if it's just something that's not made anymore. That I understand, right? It was a limited 100-piece run. This person has one used and they want more than new or new. That kind of makes sense, right? They got it in time. They got the right price. You got to pay the premium. But the Silver Sky SEs, they just came out. This is at the end of them. This is the beginning of the wave of them when they come. They'll be coming out as long as they can make them. So I have no doubt in my mind, and I have no back-end information, by the way. I have no doubt in my mind that John Mayer and the people at Paul Reed Smith are going to ride the sales of this guitar till there's no more to ride. I have nothing in my insight would tell you the opposite. Oh no, you better get it quick. So in fact, you know what I was thinking? I was going to tell you a side note. The person who listed theirs for $1,100 plus $100 shipping, I started thinking about this, plus sales tax, right? Because you have to pay sales tax. Let's say sales tax an average like 7-8%, depending on where you are in the country. What's funny about that is, like, let's say that's just another $100. Just make life easy. I go, well, that's $1,300 for a guitar. I'm pretty sure if given the task right now, you could find a Silver Sky used, a USA made one, in the high teens. So, I mean, it wouldn't be so, you know what I mean? It seems like so crazy to me. So crazy, which is what I got a piece of hair on my face. It's so crazy to me that people do this stuff, but I understand. So I understand that they do it. I just think it's stupid. Okay, so let's go to the next question. The next question is from Greg, who says, Phil, enjoyed the review of the Orange Wood. Thank you. I really appreciate that. He says, hope companies take notice and maybe send some more acoustic guitars to review and compare. Yeah, you know what's funny is acoustics fall into the same category as bass gear for me. Companies really don't see my channel as a acoustic channel or a bass gear channel. I get that a lot. Same thing with pedal companies. I get this like kind of like I'm known for guitars and then maybe amps after that, but mostly guitar stuff, which makes sense because it is a very guitar centric channel. I mean, obviously think of this. If you go by view counts, like in other words, if you like, you know, the total 90 million views on the channel, it would definitely be 80% of those come from some kind of guitar related content. In other words, guitar reviews, guitar instructions, you know, instruction repair, you know, stuff like that. Information, guitar information. So I understand that. I get that. It wasn't until actually a bass channel, a friend, call him a friend, they're another YouTube channel. They have a bass channel that does bass reviews. And I made a comment on one of these shows about 2 years ago that, you know, bass videos don't do very well for me. And that way I don't really focus on them. And then their comment to me, which was very powerful, they said, yeah, but your bass videos do more views than like a lot of the bass channels that are established. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't think of it that way. And same thing with acoustic guitar views. Although they don't sometimes pull the numbers for for the channel that the other reviews I do or other videos I do, they still pull very good numbers comparatively to a lot of channels out there. So, so that being said, that's why I'm glad you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed doing it. I have 2 more acoustic videos coming. I have the Paul Reed Smith's new line of acoustics coming. That's here, so that's how I know it's coming, because it's here. And Firefly sent out acoustic, and I also know that's here because it's here. So I have 2 more acoustics. I would love to do more acoustic videos, just like bass gear. I have some basses coming now too. Companies send out some basses, some acoustic guitars, pedals. I'll obviously do the videos, but like I said, they don't really approach very often. So the next one comes from Alan Sam's Music, who says, Phil, I have a Telly with a Seymour Duncan 59 humbucker in the neck and a Yosemite single coil in the bridge. When playing with overdrive, I'm getting a slight feedback going. Any idea what that is? So Alan, I'm familiar because I'm familiar with his channel. He's playing at home, so he's not playing out. That's a big thing to distinguish in this, because he's in an environment where he shouldn't really be getting any feedback. So the only thing I could tell you is that and this is going to sound silly, is one of the problems with, one, because I know you're making content on YouTube, and 2, well, I guess just 1. No, sitting in your room is what I was going to say. So there's a couple problems. 1, making content on YouTube, and 2, sitting in the room. One of the things that happens sometimes is you're sitting too close to your amplifier. And so the reason I say that is, even though technically you may have another guitar not doing this and this guitar is doing it, you may want to be aware of the fact that it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So here's what I would decipher. I think the safety range is 5 feet. So you want to be 5 feet from your amplifier rig, and preferably not facing it. That's really important too. And then play. And that's what you would want to know is, does the feedback occur then? I would expect that very few instruments are going to be able to, like I said, within 5 feet or closer to your amplifier or facing it, they're not going to create that same kind of problem. So that's what I would say. Now, you didn't specify if it was the neck or the bridge. And so I could tell you the 59 humbucker by Seymour Duncan is wax potted. I have no idea if the Yosemite is. I would assume it is wax potted. I don't think it's a non-potted pickup. That being said, so that you shouldn't be seeing that problem. You could insulate the cavity, but that, again, I find that it very rarely is causing what you're saying. And you're using the word slight feedback. So again, normally, that's why I said I'm doing this way. Normally the issue is if you said slight feedback on stage, I go, it's not a big deal. But slight feedback in a room where there's no other things going on, that you shouldn't experience that, especially if you're not cranked, which I don't think you are either. But like I said, I would definitely check the proximity, and also check to see, make sure you're not facing the amp. There's just no way around that. The other thing I would tell you to do is also check the pickup heights. That becomes a big problem too. Tim says, hey, Phil, I got a house full of Rona. I think that's Corona, right? So you're sick. Been playing more, stuck at home as I lose my voice. Grateful for that. Y'all be safe. Yes. So that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, oh no, I might be sick and maybe I have Corona, and that's COVID. And I'll probably, just to be safe, test myself tomorrow, but I don't think I'm sick. I think it's literally my allergies. My eyes are itching. I've experienced this. This happened to me a couple weeks ago too. Same situation. I was doing something outside, and then the next day I had itchy eyes, right? And tickle, in the back of my throat kind of thing, this whole kind of runny nose, this whole thing, just same thing. So, and it's always my fault because I take Claritin pretty consistently, and then sometimes I stop, and I stopped again. And so, again, we'll see. Okay, we have Andrew says, can't watch live, but I wanted to send some love. I appreciate that, buddy. Alan says, hey, from Scotland, the reason the Silver Sky SE went online at Guitar. Okay, I'm trying to fill it. He says, hi from Scotland. At Silver Sky SE went online at Guitar to look at these $895, so 895 euro here. Bought a, or is, yeah, maybe that's British pound. That's British pound. Okay. Bought a HSS American Performance Strat instead for $999. Much better buy for the money, I think. Sure, of course. Well, we talked about this again last week. The Silver Sky, whether it's the US one or the SE, is really connected to the, you just want that guitar. Like I said, I think it's exactly what it is, which is, it's a Strat style guitar that's a little bit different. It's got some features that are a little unique combination. It's got a look that's very familiar, but a little bit different. But mostly players that are going to be attracted to it, I think, again, the majority, we're not saying all, is going to be one of the three core players, which is John Mayer fans, which I fall into, PRS fans, which I also fall into, or Strat style fans that are looking for something slightly different, or like I said, a PRS version of a Strat. That's a thing. Sir makes a high-end Strat. You know what I mean? Essentially, a lot of people love a lot of guitars that are essentially just Strats. My Kiesel Delos is essentially just a Strat. It's just a, right? There's something cool about that it's something familiar like a Strat, but something different and featured a little different. And so, yeah. So like I said, I can see why. I like the Silver Sky. I just do. I like the guitar but I would never say, it's better than a Fender in the idea that somebody should buy it over a Fender just because it's whatever. Dave says, it's Jose was also talking about this earlier. I saw his comments too. Dave says, I'll never buy a PRS because I'm a lefty. Look, yeah, I understand the feeling, man. He was on my show, Paul Reed Smith, many years ago. As you guys know, he did a podcast with me. And I asked him about that. It was one of the questions you guys asked about. And he basically said he's not interested in making lefties, even though a few months later they started making more lefties. So I think he heard you somehow. But yeah, I'm not sure what that is. I've done video after video about that. I have videos about that, and I have videos about the industry and stuff. And it's one of the things I'll never understand or agree with, which is this idea that, making lefties is too complicated or too hard. I would imagine if I was a company, and again, just my suggestions. I've never understood why companies, especially when they release a product like this, don't make a limited run of left-handed ones, upcharge them, and just have them ready for the get-go. I find that I'm always watching and reading left-handed players are upset with the unavailability of a product. And I would imagine as a company, I would rather read that they're upset with how much more they got to pay or how limited it was. But this, I do find, I can see it in your tone, I should say, left-handed players, where it's like kind of like you're not upset that they're charging you more. You're not upset that there's not as much selection. You really seem really focused on the fact that there's just no desire to even want to approach you guys and make a product for you. And I don't understand. Especially, like I said, when we talk about the SEs, I understand. I've listened to Paul explain why USA guitars are hard to make left-handed. I'm not here to agree or disagree with him. I'm just telling you, I've heard him say it. But I would imagine if you have Court building your guitars, make Court make a bunch of lefties. So, right? Just tell them. And by the way, we want these lefties. Somebody was saying, I heard earlier this week, I saw a comment on the SE video, and somebody was saying, I guess Paul was out there talking about how few left-handed players are and why it's just not feasible. And which is why make a limited run. So I don't know. Matt says underserved market. Right. Absolutely. Which is why, like I said, I appreciate companies. I find that instead of complaining about the companies that don't do something, I always just want to try to focus and champion companies that do it right. To me, Schecter always should need a mention here. They make a lot of guitars left-handed. There's others too, but I always think of Schecter as if you're into Schecter, there's almost no Schecter you can't get when they're left-handed. And I know some players are left-handed players yeah, but I don't like them. But I always remind them yeah, but they like you. Okay. All right. Okay, so Ian's question says, hey Phil, I bought a Fender Aerodyne Strat. The back is a bit scratched up. Is it worth it to fix? Best way? Should I go to a tech? Well, I don't know how badly scratched it up is. So if it's just lightly scratches, like, kind of the equivalent of pick scratches, you could get some buffing compound. You can get some scratch remover. Stu Mac makes a bunch. McGuire's makes a bunch. I mean, you could do that. Basically get yourself a buffing wheel, stick it on a drill, or just use a 100% cloth, 100% cotton cloth and do it yourself. All of those could work, but of course, if they're deeper in that, then you're going to have to somebody do the finish work. I would say a guitar tech would not be the best one to go to unless that's a full service repair shop, because that's what you're looking for. Somebody who does finish work. It's up to you. I would also caution you, what I always remind people is, like, the Aerodyne's a great Strat. I like it. It's a great guitar. But price-wise, I bet you're going to have a little bit of a shell shock when they tell you what I think they're going to tell you to fix it. Very rarely are they going to say, like, oh yeah, we can knock that out for $50 to $100. It's going to be a few $100s to say the least. And then sometimes that kind of pushes you back a little bit. So sometimes maybe just start enjoying the relic process. So Gil says, hey, what up all? Rest in peace to Meatloaf. Wow, killer vocals. Of course, right? Oh, man. Meatloaf is amazing. I'm a Rocky Horror Picture fan. Like I said, I've said this before, I grew up a lot in Tucson, Arizona, and they have every Saturday night at midnight, they have a theater that plays the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think it still does it to this day, but it did it. It's like, since the 90s, since the early 90s, it's been doing it. So I remember me and some of my friends, we took my mother, I must have been maybe 18 years old, maybe it could have been 18, 19. And we took my mom, she had no idea what this was, to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. We just handed her toast and a squirt gun and all this stuff. And we're like, get ready. And it was like, cool. So, yes, this is a good time. Since I would tell you guys this, if you have not experienced the Rocky Horror Picture Show, unfortunately is just not the same if you watch it at home versus if you go to these theaters that do the reenactments and the participation stuff. But I will tell you, give it a shot. It's one of those movies that, man, it's so good because it's so bad. It's so good again. Like I said, I know I've seen it, 15 times. And, yeah, but it was great. And like I said, I had my kids, watch Rocky Horror Picture Show. They've both seen it, but it was at home. We rented it. And it was not the same, but at least I got to tell them the stories. This was years ago. Leonardo says, hey, Phil, how are you? Is John Mayer the single most influential gear person in history? Everything he touches turns to gold. No, it's not really him. If you think about this, this is why I think so many people had such a reaction to when John Petrucci did the podcast and said that his signature model was the second highest selling signature model of all time. I don't think sometimes us guitar players can grasp how things kind of work. Okay. Basically, let me put it this way. There are a few guitar players that sell a lot of guitars. Okay. It's a very short list, very short. And you think the list, but you're going to be, a lot of us are going to be wrong. In other words, there's so many great guitar players that don't sell very many guitars. I mean, they have signature models, but the companies have openly discussed the fact that they don't sell a whole lot. But some, it's so funny. Hold on. Got to undo somebody put John Mayer sucks, which is important. That's important to this because here's why the comedy duo said John Mayer sucks. Now, reason I'm reading that because obviously the comedy duo has every right to say how they feel. But here's what's funny about this. This is where I'm going with this comedy duo. You just proved my point. What I find is the players that cause some kind of emotional response. I could name so many good guitar players right now. And I'm going to just pick them randomly out of my head, right? I'm going to say Ty Tabor, right, is a good example. And let me do one more for fun. It's like, then I stall. I don't want to say... I don't know. I'm trying to think of another one. Like besides, you know what? Blue Saraceno. Okay. So here's what I mean by that. I'm picking those two guitar players for a reason. There are players right now, and some of you are like, I've never heard of those people. And some of you are like, oh, I love them. But for some reason, that's how it lands. That's it. There's just, you either like Ty Tabor or you don't, you don't know him. That's kind of where it lands. And I'm only picking on that because of this next point. But then there are guitar players that are just they get the extreme emotions out of everybody. John Mayer, Eddie Van Halen, right? This is two. Slash, somebody was mentioning Slash earlier. Slash is definitely another one of those guitar players, right? Where when you bump into them, there's no like, oh, they're all right. It's I love them or I hate them. And what I've learned is that when you hear somebody say, I hate so-and-so, or I don't like them, or they suck, you got to think that emotional response, which seems, think about this, they're outwardly kind of saying like, I just don't like this person. I hate this guitar player, or this person's overrated, or whatever they're saying. But what's crazy about this is I found that person willing to put out that negative energy, which is, by the way, it's not a critique or a thing. Everybody's allowed to not like somebody. What I'm saying is that thing that inspired them to put out that energy is why you see why those artists do so well. Because for some reason, there's the counterbalance to that. Somebody's so much more intensely into them. And I find I'm the same as at most players. For some reason, I can tell you right now, I like a lot of guitar players. Like I really like them and I listen to them and I play their stuff. Funny enough, and I'm gonna, like I said, because I brought up Ty Tabor, so I'm gonna use Ty Tabor again. I don't know why it is. I can't tell you this answer, but let me put it this way. I like Ty Tabor. Obviously, I'm a huge King's X fan, so I like Ty Tabor probably more than John Mayer as a guitar player. I love Ty Tabor's tone. I know they're different things. I understand one's blues and one's kind of prog rock kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is, I really love Ty Tabor's tone. I love it. And I like King's X. I've seen live 3 times. In fact, I've seen John Mayer 3 times. I've seen King's X 3 times. So I've seen them both the same amount of times. Love them. Never would buy a Ty Tabor guitar. Doesn't even occur to me to do it. Isn't that funny? But I bet I bought John Mayer guitars. Isn't that funny? Because of that reason. For some reason, some players just can really sell a guitar. And Steve Vai's one. We know who they are. Steve Vai, John Petrucci, Eddie Van Halen, John Mayer, right? Slash. These players can really, for some reason, push guitars. There's just something about them that does this. And I'm just reading comments. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to get too sidetracked, but I want to make sure, see if there's any kind of comments that kind of. Somebody's saying, I never heard a John Mayer song either. That's not really weird. Now, see, Matt Rose says BB King, but see, I would be curious to know. Alex Lifeson. Here's what's interesting to me. I would be curious to know. My guess, it's just my guess. BB King, Alex Lifeson, those guitar players do not sell anything in the levels of numbers as players as Petrucci or John Mayer, Vai, Halen. And it has obviously nothing to do with talent. It has nothing to do with their band success or their success. They're all equal. I mean, I would actually argue maybe BB King's got to be way more known than John Mayer. Again, I'm speculating. I'm just speculating stuff. That's not the point. For some reason, there's something those players resonate with guitar players with. It's really strange. And it's always been this way since I can remember. So it's weird. Yeah, like somebody talking about Eric Clapton. Look, when I told you I was a PRS dealer, but I was a Fender dealer for 11 years. And, we sold a fair share of our Fender guitars. And I remember, and all the Fender guitars, and every shop's going to be a little different because, obviously, you're in the shop and, you have influence on, your customers because they come in and they gravitate towards you. That's just like this channel. It's not that you influence people. It's that people are gravitate towards things that they're interested in. And we, if you have similar interests, you might gravitate towards the shop. We sold the number one selling artist guitar I ever sold Fender was Eric Johnson. That's what we sold at the store by far. Then after that was probably John Mayer Strats. So that's the order we would sell artist guitars. Clapton was probably third, or if not tied for Jeff Beck. Those are the ones we would sell the most of, for sure. Like, here's a good example. I'm a huge Kenny Wayne Shepherd fan. Of course, I've seen him live twice. He's amazing. And I love his guitar, and for a while, and I mean a good while, the Kenny Wayne Shepherd Strat was the only 12-inch rated Strat you really could get your hands on, because there wasn't a whole lot of models out that way. And it was cool looking as hell. Do you guys remember it had the graphics on it? You know, he had the cross graphic, and then he had like 3 different ones. And we would pull them in all the time, and just they were so hard to sell. They were so slow to sell. And it, well, obviously it's not for a lack of respect for him. It's not from anything else. It's just for some reason he just didn't sell guitars like the other guys did. So it's weird. So the John Mayer thing is obviously he is PRS's now boy, like Petrucci is going to be Music Man's, and Vi is Ibanez's. Just sometimes everything just comes together, and that's what you have. And the Silver Sky will now be up there with the Gem and the Petrucci guitars. It's going to be, if it's not already there now. Commodore says Mascus has sold a crap load of Squires. Yes, he has. So you know, and Fenders, because I've sold some of his actual, you know, the Fenders, which were pretty expensive. You know what I mean? But I'm just telling you. Like I said, I don't know for sure. None of us really know for sure. But I've been around this pretty long time. You can see. It's not anything. You can see how much a company is manufacturing, and they're like the level of Silver Skies that PRS manufactures for a size company like that is crazy to watch. I was on a video with Marty Schwartz from Marty Schwartz's channel. He was doing a video for American Music Supply. They asked me if I would jump on the channel with him and do this video to give away a Silver Sky. This is years ago, and so I agreed. Good friends with Marty. So of course, when he asked me, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So it's on his channel. It might be still there to this day. I don't know if the video is still up because it was for a giveaway. And he was, like I said, his channel was giving away a Silver Sky. And they asked me in the video to explain maybe some fun, interesting things I know about Silver Sky. And I did a bunch of them. And one of the things I said was that he asked me in the video, do you think it's like PRS's #1 selling guitar? And I said, oh, it's gotta be, right? And I said it kind of passively like that. Oh, it's got to be, right? And then I think I said something to the fact, like, I just came back from the factory for my 3rd or 4th time at that point. And I said, and they were everywhere. That's all the factory seemed like they were making was Silver Skies. What's funny about that was, I'd say immediately, like within 24 hours, PRS reached out to me. You know, somebody from PRS reached out to me and said, oh, hey, Phil, we saw you on Marty Schwartz. Hey, just let you know, the #1 selling guitar is the Custom 24, and the #2 is the Silver Sky. So it's actually not the #1 model. And what's funny was I was being, again, very passive about this statement. Like, I kind of meant, like, when he said it's got to be like, you know, the #1 selling guitar, I meant, you know, I thought in the moment, you know, like, yeah, in the moment, you know, but I didn't say in the moment. I just said, yeah. What's funny was when they said that, I responded immediately saying, are you telling me that your #1 selling guitar is the guitar you've been selling for 30 years, but your #2 selling guitar is the guitar you've been selling for 3 years? And they responded with yes. And I went, oh my God. I think that is your #1 selling guitar then. That's crazy. So again, it's just interesting to see, you know what I mean, how certain guitar players can, for some reason, activate the sales of guitars. It's just a strange thing. MG Carey says Glary has endorsers now. Do they? Do they really? Like, what? I'm not shocked, but I don't know if you're joking or if it's serious. That'll be interesting. Okay. Matthew says, will original Silver Skies go down in value now? No, I think the problem is there's a couple things that happens. You got to understand, people get really into these guitars. So things I would have predicted that I, if you would have asked me just a couple years ago about the Silver Sky, you know, would it run its course? Would it get saturated? Would everybody get one and at some point be sick of them? I would say yes to all those as a guess. The thing that's going to happen now that they know how to keep tapping into this, what we all know is that basically Apple's business model, right? I'm not saying they're doing this, but it seems like it, right? Which is they're kind of riding the wave of sales, and as the sales slow, it looks like they immediately have a new model or new color. I mean, it seems so coincidental, if not, because it could be because, like I said, John Mayer's a very, very smart marketing person, and so is Paul Reed Smith Guitars by that matter. So it could be like, oh, sales are dipping in the last quarter. Let's bring out a crazy color. Let's do maple fretboards. Right? Look at how they've been parceling out excitement on the Silver Skies. It's been very consistent. But what I was going to tell you was the thing about will the value go down. Here's where I think it's going to get a little trippy. First of all, you got to understand that now there's different versions of the Silver Sky, because you got to understand, like in July of last year, 2020, so actually longer than that, they went to nitrocellulose lacquer finishes. So now you have players that like the nitro Silver Skies, and then you have players that like the old finish Silver Skies. Obviously, they've changed up the colors, right? So some people like, the original colors. Some people like the new colors. I think they're really smart. I don't know how long they'll be able to do this, but they're really smart. And in fact, I think everybody was very intuitive. Again, all the comments I read, I was one of the first channels to get a Silver Sky sent out. So I was able to have my video out that same day. And I read a lot of the comments, and a lot of comments say a lot of things that we all kind of know and guess, which is interesting they didn't do a maple one because they can do that later. Interesting that they only did these 4 colors because they could do other colors later. You know what I mean? They can eventually make they did an 8.5-inch radius. Everybody's like, why'd they do that? I'm like, well, why wouldn't they do that? Because now they can do a flatter radius next if they want to, right? They could just keep creating this demand for the instrument. Interesting stuff. And look, it's not a hard business model to figure out. Look at Steve Vai. He's a perfect example. Look at, like I said, Petrucci. These players come out with like a new color of guitar every year. Right? And when the gem slows down, you do the Pia. And when Petrucci's guitar slows down, they do another model, right? And then when that model slows down, they do another color. And when that color slows down, they do a special edition one. You got to have something new. I actually think it was Paul Reed Smith himself who said, if you don't have a new product, you're dying. I think somewhere out there, I think in interviews, he said it multiple times in interviews. The reason I say that is because I've interviewed Paul twice. I think 3 times. I've interviewed Paul Reed Smith 3 times, and all 3 times when I interview anybody, the first thing I do is pretty much watch every interview on that person for that week, all week, to the point where, like a band who's properly prepared their song list, they hate the songs. By the time I interview anybody, I'm pretty much sick of them because I've watched everything, because I'm trying to find questions that I think are different, something I can, and also I've learned you can ask somebody a question and it shuts them down. And that's not good. You know what I mean? Because then you're losing the flow of where they might say something interesting. So I watched so many interviews. I remember him saying, if you don't have a new product, you're basically dead. So interesting. Guillermo says, Gibson, Phil McKnight signature. That would never happen. Never. There would never be a Phil McKnight Epiphone guitar. Would never happen. So So like I said, I've said this before now, and again, we'll go to the next subject because we're just beating this to death. But I've learned this now on YouTube, is that certain channels, for some reason, they just get relationships with companies. I don't know why it works this way. It seems very unintuitive and dumb that all of a sudden, but companies, when they work with a YouTube channel and it works out well, they just keep coming back and keep coming back. Meanwhile, you can't get another company to get your attention, even though they obviously can see you're doing a lot. I would think, apparently I'm wrong, I would think that when I'm making a video in front of an audience about a product and I've never done a type of product before, that company would reach out to you and go, hey, we want to get this product on this channel and get some excitement out here. It's fresh meat, so to speak, right? New eyes. And it never seems to work that way. So who knows? But yeah. Bullets for Tea says, never say never. No, I can guarantee it. So I can guarantee that. I always tell you guys I would probably never do a signature guitar. Like I said, I would be willing to do limited edition guitars where it's something exciting but not something attached to me. I'll just never, so I still say never, but then there's like, I know never, because I know it doesn't involve me. Does that make sense? The Gibson thing it's not me. It was, they don't send guitars to the channel. I got, since I've been on YouTube, Gibson Epiphone has sent out one Epiphone on the channel. I thought the video did well, but then I never Never happened again. And that was the end. So every single Epiphone and Gibson you see, I buy them and just put them on the channel. Okay. Oh, Gas Addict said Rainbow sold out. They canceled his order. So I wonder if one of you guys got it and that was the one they had, or if it was just never, they just didn't update. So. All right. We got to go. Next question. Next subject. What do we got? We have Leonardo says, "Hey, Phil, how are you?" I'm okay. We already did this one. This one was from Preston. Preston says, "I love my 50-watt Marshall Origins. Why don't they get love?" The Origins, they don't get love because they're not exotic. I think they do get love, actually, believe it or not. I think the Origins Marshalls are really kind of like they get love from the players that are like, they're looking for something like that. It's a good sounding Marshall. I think the Origin's a great amp. No issues, right? I know sometimes, like I said, I only know one negative thing ever, and it was a YouTube channel was talking about the effects loop had an issue. I only mentioned that. I kind of hate it right now because that's the only one time I heard it, and I just kind of say it. But other than that, the ones I played were fine and fantastic. But you got to understand, like, you know, the problem is, and the same thing, Fender's in the same boat. They're all in the same boat. These companies basically built their entire brand on these, you know, iconic things like the JC100, the Plexi, you know what I mean? Same with Fender, the, you know, the Twin. So when they come out with something like this, especially Marshall seems to get it even more so than anybody else. They come out with like an affordable line of amps that are good. All of a sudden everybody's like, yeah, it's not the real thing. Whatever that means. It's not a Plexi. It's kind of like a Plexi. It's not a JC100. It's not this. And so that's why they don't get so much love. But no, they're fantastic amps, great amps, and great price. And you can score them for a really good deal. And I think some of the Origin cabinets are some of the best deals out there for cabinets. They're not masterfully built by any means. What I mean by this, they don't seem like they're 13-ply birch and all that, you know, void-free, all that stuff. But still great cabinets for the money, and the speakers aren't horrible. And I kind of like I said, when they're not horrible, it's because I can't tell you because I haven't tested them to know how good the speakers are. But no issues from what I see. Randy says, "Hey, Phil, are you going to the next NAMM?" I'm probably going to go. I've been asking every company I know if they're going, and every company's telling me no. So my understanding is Fender's not going, but again, all that could change, or I may have heard it incorrectly. I know the NAMM is going to suck. Let me tell you why it's going to suck. It's because it's in summertime across the street. It's across the street from Disneyland in the summertime when school's out and Disneyland's packed, which means all the hotels are going to be packed, barring some, you know, more COVID craziness. And so that's it. And then of course, if you've been to Anaheim in the summertime, it's not necessary. It's not heat like where I live, but it's not great weather. Like it's going to be 90s to 100 during the day. So it'll be warm during the day. It'll be nice at night in the morning, but it'll be hot during the day. Maybe good. We'll be at the show. So, but what I was going to say is, I think that's kind of the thing. I am going though, and here's why I'm going. I've been asked by some friends to go and just go hang out and do something. So I'll probably go and just do that because I haven't physically gone anywhere in so long. Maybe it'd be worth going to do that. And I think if I'm going to go do that, I'll go to the show. So I plan to kind of pop in for one day and just see what's around, see what's doing stuff. Jeff says, "Phil, the Phil McKnight Glary signature model with all the love he has shown them." Yeah, you know, it's funny. I love it when, I love when you guys go, I love it when you say stuff like that because Jeff's like, the way you say it is great because my world is so oddly different than what everybody else's world is. What I mean by that is you guys will say, "Oh, you give this company a lot of, you know, love." I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Actually, we'll just use Jeff's comment. He says, "Look, the Glary, basically with all the love he's shown Glary, but Glary doesn't really see it that way. Because remember, my most watched Glary video is the true cost of inexpensive guitars, where I explained that you can buy a Squire for less money than a Glary if you don't do your own repairs. Um, and don't get me wrong, I don't think there's a problem with the company. I don't think they like hate the channel by any means, but let's just say they don't love hearing that. And they also don't love it that all my videos are based around the idea of, hey, if you want to learn how to work on guitars, these are good for that. So again, it's kind of funny. Like I said, I think it's funny. The reason I say that is because there's nothing wrong with what you said. I just say it because I think it's funny sometimes when a viewer's talking to me and they go, oh, this company must love you. And I'm like, yeah, that's not, no, they don't, they don't love me. Because what you guys hear, I think, are rational comments, but sometimes they hear that I'm bagging on their stuff. Eric says, what? He didn't say anything. He just wanted a super chat. Man, thanks. Grumpy Mike Guitar says, my friend was not kidding about the MT15. I like it so much, I plan to sell off 2, maybe 3 of my other amps. Yep, I still stick with what I say. The MT15 punches way above its weight. It's louder than most amps that are double the wattage. It's a great clean channel. It's a great distortion channel. I like it. Every time I talk about it, though, there's always a 1 or 2 comments about saying the effects loop's noisy. I checked mine, and mine was fine, but I had a new one again. Remember, my first review, the original one. Then I got one of the newer ones with the new tubes, and I didn't have any issues with the effects loop or anything. So it could have been something that was resolved, or it could have been just luck, because I never really checked the first one too in-depthly, to see what if it was acting up. Like I always said, my original Archons always had issues with their effects loop. So it is something that obviously PRS has had a problem with, but the MT15 is great. Jenny says, just received my KYG Zither guitar stand today. Wow, that was fast. So glad a couple more became available. Haven't put it together yet. Just got home from work. Just want to say thanks. Thank you. So what Jenny's talking about is, as you guys know, we did a limited edition Zither Know Your Gear stand last year. And I have a new version. It's called the Neon Sign. And what happened was, this is what happened. I only did a limited run of like 100 pieces of the first one. Well, then for Christmas, I wanted to send some gifts to some friends. And so I reached out to Zither and asked if I could buy some, but I didn't want to put that logo on them because you guys, I told you guys it would be limited run. Here's what happened. This is important to the story. So I bought a bunch. I sent them out. Like I sent John at Bad Cat one, just people in the industry that I'm friends with, certain people. I sent Larry DiMarzio one. I sent them a stand. But they didn't get the stand that you guys all got with the Know Your Gear limited edition graphic. They got a new graphic because that one was all sold out. So I had these made for that. What happened was, long story short, I needed another one. That's all that matters, of the new stand. And when I went to order it from Zither, Zither told me that they had 3 of the old ones laying around. And I'm like, you do? And they're like, yeah. So apparently there was 3 left. So I let my patrons know. And so Jenny was one of the patrons that bought them. So that's why I'm just letting you know why she's excited. She's excited because she got one of the limited edition ones because there was 3 left over. There might be a 4th one, but I think they were saying it's damaged or scratched. So I was trying to figure that out. Let's see. This one I'll hit because it's Voodoo Fist because it's in time with what we're talking. He says, "Hey Phil, I see 1,200 people watching. How many people tuned into your very first show and $10 for the tip jar? My first show, I don't remember. Like I said, the very first show ever was me and Ralph, and we just said, "Oh, hey, we're here," and we had no idea what we were doing. I remember we did it on my phone, and we just knew that there was a button that you pushed on the phone, and it would go live. The live podcast thing, this like podcast show thing, is crazier than I ever thought it would be. I never have to go like, whoa, I hope one day it's like really big. It's so much bigger than I think it ever should have been or should be. And, but I'm just happy that you guys all want to hang out. I appreciate it so much. Which is why, like I said, I'm drinking my tea and got my water and my cough drops. I'm going to make it through today. But what's funny is, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that we all hang out. I just like it. You know why I like it? It's very soothing and comforting to know that there's more nerds like me out there. It's just there's something inherently pleasing about the idea that you're not alone in something you like or do. which is how I've always felt, you know. And that means, look, this is seriously, when I had the store, I would feel alone sometimes. You know, every once in a while, customers come in, we talk guitars and stuff, and it was very exciting. And I would get like this, like we're talking about stuff. I love talking about this stuff, the stuff we talk about. It's interesting to me. And, but even then I would get lonely, which is where I kind of started reaching out to YouTube. It's kind of like I'm looking, it's like I said, I like this analogy. I'm going to use it forever. It's like I opened a sports bar so I could talk sports, but instead I had to serve liquor and deal with drunks all day. That would be the analogy, right? That's how I felt about my guitar store. I opened a guitar store so I could talk to guitar nerds all day. Instead, all I did was had to negotiate sales and take care of customers, which is fun, but not like this. This is fun. So this is like so the difference to me is, like it's like I said, you open a sports bar, but you don't get to talk sports. Now it's like having a sports channel, but it's a guitar channel. A Shinnery Kid says my 594 plays better, but not 2K better than my 18 Les Paul Trad Pro. I didn't say Pro, just said traditional. So they have a 2018 traditional Les Paul traditional, but he's saying his 594 plays better, but it sounds worse than his Les Paul. Okay, worse is interesting. We'll get to that. He says, I feel like I should sell it and buy a couple other guitars like my first Telly. Is that bad? Good financial decision? I mean, it's, financial decision. I mean, obviously you bought the 594, you're going to take a hit unless you bought it really, really good. The issue with the 594 is exactly what you said. What did I say? I said it to somebody just recently that I thought the 594 was better than my Gibson R9 quality wise. I stand by that 100%. I'm sure it's my opinion, but I would definitely stand on that opinion, and I'll debate anyone. My 594 and all the 594s I played are superior to my Gibson R9 in every way, in the way that they're fit and finished and dealt with, and they're great. But exactly like a Shinnery Kid would say, my R9 sounds way better. I think a lot of that has to do with, and I'm just guessing, it feels like the 594, it feels like Paul Reed Smith, what they were trying to do was make something that sounded and played like a vintage Les Paul, but not exactly like a vintage Les Paul. So like it doesn't nail that vintage Les Paul tone. That's part of it. So, but so I understand your feeling. I got rid of my 594, and like I said, I told you guys, it was amazing. Mine was heavy though. And I will tell you this, if mine wasn't a heavier Les Paul, it was a heavy Les Paul feeling 594, I would have kept it. But my advice to you is, if you don't love it, don't. And here's the thing: if you don't love it and you don't play it, then yeah, maybe move it into something that you will. Nothing's going to cost you more than the money you spent that you're not using. Gas Addict says, ahoy Phil, have you ever seen an issue when using shielding tape causing all pots? Okay, I gotta kind of read into this. Okay, so it says stop working the second you touch them down into the cavity. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. Yes. Look, shielding tape, shielding paint is essentially no different than a wire, which is why when you see me in videos testing it, I'm using the multimeter and I'm touching 2 points. Basically, I'm trying to make sure you're getting a connection, okay? There's no difference in it being equivalent to a wire. So essentially, what I want you to think about is, and help me out with this, if you had a component in your guitar and you soldered a wire to it, and then you touch that wire to something and then it shorted out or grounded out, that would tell you that there's something wrong, right? Well, whatever's happening is your wiring is not right, because what's grounding out is, especially I think you're saying the second you touch them down to the cavity, you're grounding out. So yes, so the answer to your question is, have I ever seen this issue? I absolutely have. It happens all the time. And the fix is you need to check to see what is grounding out. What is killing that circuit? But that's what it's doing. So there's nothing wrong with the tape. So, it's fine. It's just, it's connected to something that once you're connecting those pots to it, that's what's causing the problem. So you just got to go through your wiring and make sure that's fine. And I've told you guys this many times too. Sometimes you want everything to be touching the shielding paint or the shielding tape, but sometimes you need spacers so they don't. It depends again how it's wired up and how it's all wired together. So there you go. Wade 6242 says I do love my single cut 594. Again, great guitar. That's why I said, I don't like, sometimes like you hear it more and more. I don't like the word better because better is a tricky thing. I like things more. I like things less. Technically, it means I like them better, right? But better is so hard because sometimes it's not about better. It's like prefer. I prefer. Security Loft says, hey, Phil, love the channel. Any thoughts on an H&K Switchblade TSA amp head? I played a Switchblade so long ago. We're talking like 2006 is when I played one. Couldn't remember anything about it. So it has a lot of gain. Sounded good, I thought. Seems that many didn't like them because of the digital effects built in. Yeah, I'm not wired like that. So to me, that stuff doesn't bug me at all. None of that stuff bugs me. The EVH Iconic stuff is like solid state tube hybrid stuff. I could care less. Like I said, I could care less about any of that stuff. Digital effects in amps, I don't care. Digital reverbs, I'm a huge fan of digital reverbs, especially in tube amps. I've even reviewed recently amps that have digital reverbs in them that sound fantastic. There's boutique, high-end, expensive tube amps that have digital reverbs in them. Obviously, the Bad Cat Cub 40, the Player Series, has a digital reverb added to it. I like digital reverbs, so I like it. Digital effects, I'm good with those. I don't have anything like that. Could care less. Like I say, I'll say it all the time. It's like a broken record. Like I said, I like good sounding amps, and it just so happens that most of the amps that I like happen to be tube amps, but that's not the qualifier. Like I don't need them to be a tube amp. It just, if you go through my amp collection, it's going to be mostly tube amps. But there are amps like, for instance, the Iron Ball SE from Engel. It's got tons of digital stuff in it. It sounds great. I love this idea. I think if you have that kind of in your head, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, sometimes you just don't like stuff. It's fine. Don't like it. But if I could help you onto the other side, what I would tell you is this. I kind of always chuckle. Like there's people have tube amps and there's people like digital stuff. Let's say Axe Effects. Let's just compare an Axe Effects to like, let's say a good tube amp, a quality tube amp. And then you argue all the things. And then some company out there goes, well, why don't we just put some of the Axe Effects technology in the tube amp? And then that way everybody's happy. And then it makes everybody the least amount of happy. Because it's like, I just want one or the other. And that's what makes me chuckle, because here's why. I can't tell you that I don't like that stuff, because I am definitely shoving digital stuff into my amps all the time. I'll shove a digital pedals into the effects loop of amps, into the front amps. I run digital and analog all day long. Again, it's just, it's whatever I like. If I like it, then I use it, and I call it a day. Now, again, where there's a slight exception to this rule is collecting things. Sometimes you collect things because there's nostalgia attached to it, interesting things like that. For instance, I have a 1984 Tube Screamer. Couldn't tell you, I swear, what Texas Instruments chips in it. I could care less. I remember I got it. I remember I opened it up. I took a picture. I sent it to Lawrence. And I go, look, I got an 84 Tube Screamer. It was in perfect condition. It's like, looks like it's brand new. Okay. I have no exaggeration. It's like brand new. Nowhere in my mind do I go, oh man, it's the best sounding Tube Screamer. In fact, I think my Red Dirt from Keeley sounds way better. But why did I buy it? Because I know it's going to be worth double, triple, quadruple what I paid for it one day, and then I'll sell it off, and then I'll buy something else I like, right? And I'll get to use it. Like I said, I've said this before, rich people have been doing this for a long time, right? They buy things that are essentially assets, and then they can, enjoy them and then get rid of them. That's one of the things about collecting you get to do. You get to buy something and play it for a while, sell it for what you paid for, sell it for more for a profit, move on your own little way. when somebody says, and I've said this before too, somebody says, oh, I got this blah, blah, blah Tube Screamer clone and it's just as good as the Tube Screamer. I'm like, yes, it is, in my opinion. But like I said, I didn't buy the Tube Screamer 84 because I thought it was good. I bought it because, are better than any other Tube Screamer. I thought it was good. And it's kind of cool. It's got a cool factor. Like, hey, it's an 84 and it's in great condition. And it'll be worth something someday because it's worth something now. I've told you guys already. I had I had a Klon pedal. I sold it when I decided it was worth way more than I thought it should ever be worth. And then I told you I recently bought a Love Zen Drive from Love Pedals. I had a Hermedio one, but it was worth like 4 times what I paid for it. So I sold it off, bought the Love pedal, and put a few $100 in my pocket. And I love the Love pedal. And I could tell you, I AB'd them before I, sold the other one because you're like, let's make sure. And I really thought deep down the Hermedio one was a little nicer, like it was 1% nicer. And I was like, nah, I'd rather have a few $100 and a free pedal that sounds good than this other pedal sounds 1% better that I'm not connected to that way. So there you go. There's my thing. So to answer your question, I don't care that it has digital effects in the amp. And my screen jumped again, but that's okay. I'll find it. I'll find where we're at. Jeff says, hey, got an idea from Vi. Okay. I like the sound of Fender Strat, hate the feel. Steve put Strat pickups in one of his Ibanez's. I saw that video he just did. It was really nice. Of course, Steve didn't say what ones. Recommendation for Strat Tone HSS coil tap. It's tough. I hate that particular question, Jeff. And the reason is because it's so specifically, you got to be really specific. Pickups to me are a very specific thing to say. Like if you just want a Stratty type tone, well, then you can get SS1s from Seymour Duncan. They sound great. Or, DiMarzio makes a great set. Or of course, Fender makes a great set. To me, it's more about like, what specific sound are you going for? So for instance, something that I kind of always point out, just because it's nice to kind of focus on this, is that for Strat pickups, what I like is fatter Strat pickups. So I like the 69 set from Fender Custom Shop, something like that, where I'm kind of trying to get a little punch out of the sound of the pickup. And the reason is because, and there's a lot of reasons for this, is because when I want a true single coil tone, one of the things I don't want to do is have to rework all my amps and pedals because they're so dramatically different from everything else I have. And I don't play a lot of high output pickups, humbuckers, so it's not like I have my amps all set up a certain way for these high output pickups. So I think you're fine. Obviously, Vi, here's what I don't know what Vi used. I would be shocked if he didn't use DiMarzio, but he could have, because he does have guitars without DiMarzio in there. But I would be shocked if they weren't DiMarzio pickups. And if you want some great sounding pickups that are noiseless, I love the Yngwie Malmsteen pickups, which I think are now the H something SS something, whatever DiMarzio makes that's not Yngwie anymore, because they used to be the Yngwie pickups. I love those pickups. As you guys know, I'm not a huge noiseless fan, and the few I like are those. Seth says, Phil, what is my favorite reverb pedal? That's easy. It says, my Matthews Effects Astrometer V2 arrives tomorrow. Super excited. For reverb, like I said, I have a bunch of them. I've always been a big fan of the 63 reverb from Boss, which they discontinued. There's a ton of them, but the one I use all the time is the Keeley Caverns, and it's because I like having reverb and delay in one box. I like that idea. I love the idea. And I've always liked it ever since I tried the Line 6 M9. This concept that I could have like this pedal that was a little too big though. See, that's why I said I like the idea like this small, right? And putting 2 in 1. For me, I love this idea. I wish they would do it with more things. I like the idea that, like I said, I have delay and reverb all the time. I don't have to have 2 full-size pedals for this. And the reason I like that pedal, and by the way, the Matthews Effects makes great effects too, by the way. But the thing I like about these combo delay reverbs, and by the way, NuX makes the Atlantic, and that's my other favorite one, is I like, if I'm using reverb and delay a lot of times, it's just shove it in the effects loop of an amp and call it a day. That's all I use. Like a lot of times when I'm using an amp, I'm not using pedals. I'm really focused on the amp. And so I just want to put reverb and delay in the effects loop and call it a day. That's why I like having both those in one box. Okay, Local Rig says, do you recommend a always on plug in place? What? Plug in place of the foot switch on the 68 Deluxe Reverb. Are they easy? I'm really not understanding on always on plug in place of the foot switch. Do I recommend an always? I don't know. I'm for some reason not grabbing the question. I'm sure a bunch of you are like, no, this is what he means. You're not getting it. The 68 Deluxe Reverb. So I am familiar with the amp because I have the 65 Deluxe. I can tell you this, and this is for me, which is because of the way I use my gear, I almost never use the foot switches on any amps. Most of my amplifiers, I mean, literally most, the foot switches are still in the original boxes in the garage. I don't even take them out of the box because I'm usually never using them, you know what I mean, in kind of some kind of live situation. If I do play with, which, since COVID has been almost non-existent, but before that when I was playing with people, I always had one or two amps that I always took. So the rest of the amps, again, were just to be here to make videos with or personal play or recording with. So, and I never just needed a foot switch on. All right. I'm just reading questions, guys. Sean Brooks says, hey, Phil, you mentioned a while back that viewers had reported a lot of issues with G&Ls to you. Can you elaborate? Sure, of course. I've been trying to decide on a new telly. You know what it is I get a lot of comments anytime you review anything. It works exactly like you guys would imagine it works. If I review something, I get 2 or 3 people saying, hey, I got the thing you reviewed and I love it. And you get 4 or 5 people going, I got the thing you reviewed and I hate it. And here's why. The problem is, but a lot of times what I get a lot of emails about is like, so-and-so isn't responding to me, this company. They just want me to know they've had some bad customer service issues. G&L is mostly riddled with that. And I've always said this. In fact, I feel bad. I'm playing tag with him right now with Ron from G&L. He called me and then I called him back and then he called me back. And I couldn't call him back today because I didn't want to lose my voice for the show. So I don't know what it is in reference to, but what it's going to tell you is that with G&L, and I've said this many times, and I really think it's their one thing that I kind of, hopefully my video when I did the tour, their factory kind of came across. They kind of present as a bigger company than they are. It's really a small company. I mean, essentially, like I said, Ron runs everything. He's like handling the dealers all day and the customers all day. He's handling all the custom shop builds. I mean, he's doing everything. So the thing about that, when you see companies like that, is I always tell them, like, you need to get that out there, that you're just, you only have a couple people doing all this stuff. And so I see that in the comments from viewers. It's like, hey, I'm having this issue, or I talked to my dealer and my dealer is waiting for an answer from G&L. I haven't got it back. And I always try to, if I can get back to you guys, I always say, like, look, my understanding is it's slow response because they're a small company. So that's mostly the reported issues with G&L to me, is that they had an issue and it's always a customer service issue. It's a slow response. Majority of them seems like they get resolved. Like somebody will send me an update saying, oh, it got resolved. This is what happened. But yeah. I mean, but like I said, when I say viewers, I mean, I'm always talking about 2 or 3. It's never 20 or 50. So usually if it's 20 or 50, if there's a crap ton of viewers with an issue like that, then I would probably make a video or something, or we would discuss it on the show and in depth what's going on. But it's usually, like I said, just a small. Sean says if they're that small, surprised they can able to sell in Sweetwater. Well, not really. I mean, think about it. They do their import line, so the import line can be as big as the orders can be because it's essentially just Tech makes all the import G&Ls, so they can make as many as they want. Their facility is, I couldn't tell you exactly. I'm going to throw my guesses, and I'm pretty sure I'm right. Because the problem is, if you ever seen that building, and like I said in my video, it kind of comes across, it's compartmentalized physically in different rooms in a row, right? And the way it looks, it's really common now to see businesses like this. They're in a row. It looks like, to me, it looks like if you ever seen a giant storage shed, it looks like a row of storage sheds, and then they've been all connected through doors. If I was going to say how big their facility is, it feels like it's like 9,000 square feet. Maybe sounds big to some of you guys. Maybe it doesn't sound big to you guys, but it's really not that big. So like I said, I couldn't tell you how many workers are there. But I mean, it's not 100. I can tell you that. Not even close. There was no way there was 100 people there. I'd be shocked if it was 50 people. So very small company. So yeah, that puts it in perspective. A lot of companies are not as big as you guys think, but they are one of the few companies I think for some reason present bigger. In other words, everybody thinks they're bigger because they're G&L. So you're like, oh, if Fender's like almost $1 billion, then G&L's got to be like, like Paul Reed Smith, like $70-80 million a year. It's not. Here's my guess. If I was going to guess, G&L is probably not even a $10 million, $8 million a year company. If that was my guess, I bet you they don't. You guys can Google it and find out. Even though they're private, a lot of stuff you can find that information if you so inclined to find out. But no, small. In fact, I would be surprised if they were even bigger than Kiesel in any way. Very shocked. Actually, I'd be very shocked to find out if they were bigger than Kiesel. Okay. Yeah, Wanna Beetle saying G&L is very industrial looking. It isn't big at all. Worked there last year for about 5 minutes before I caught the Bieber. So yeah, again, small. So, okay. We have, we're going to have missing if I don't start where I left off. Okay, Roger says, Phil is the world's best salesman. All right, do I get a plaque? Says, got me again, bought a demo Engel Fireball 25. That's because the Fireball 25 is awesome. From Sweetwater for a good price plus an additional discount. Have a beer. Thank you for the beer. That wasn't me, though. The Fireball 25 is a great amplifier. I absolutely love my Fireball 25 to this day. It's still one of my favorite amplifiers, and here's why. It's one of those amplifiers that does everything really well. It's not doesn't knock anything out of the park, and sometimes that's a downgrade, right? It's the clean channel is good. It's not great. The distortion channel is very good, but it's not great. It's a lot of variety of tones, but it's not like every tone. The noise gate works great. It's just a really good amp. It's made really well, and it's not crazy price. Although it's not inexpensive, it's not in that $2,000 range as other amps. And I can tell you, over time, as much as I like it even more, and it grows on me even more, and goes on even more. I'm looking at it right now, and to the point where I go back to it. And I can tell you, out of all my amps, I've talked about this. Like I have the Bogner, the Soldano, which is 30 watt, which is great. The Mark V. I would say, I'm just looking to make sure so I don't have to be wrong later. Yeah, if I could only keep one of those high gain amps, that would be the one I keep. For all the reasons that I just mentioned. It's a great amp. I think they did a really good job. And I do have the Iron Ball SE, and it's really good. And I've said it over and over again. As much as I love the features in that, as much as I love everything, I think really what it is about the Engel Fireball 25 is that, although I would really wish it had those features like the SE, and the SE is really nice, there's just something I just really liked about that amp. I just kind of gravitate towards it. Attention. A 10. Oh, the name's a 10. A 10 says, why do you think more companies don't do reverse headstocks, especially the metal ones? It seems LTD. Oh, it seems like it would add more stability to that tuned string. I can see that point. Sure, of course, right? Especially if you're not using a tremolo system, okay, and you're not locking the nut. More importantly, I should say, like a Floyd Rose system, something to lock nut. I don't know why they don't do it. I don't. It's never been really popular, the reverse headstock thing. It's never been a popular thing. It's always been limited, and it's no company's really kind of, made tons of them. I mean, like Nuno Bittencourt, the N4, it comes reverse. There's guitars that come reverse, but it's just never been that big of a thing. Not sure why. I agree with you. I think it's cool. I think it's also because players get all weirded out about they're used to doing this all the time and they don't want to do that. So it's kind of funny. It's funny. Part of the problem with this industry is part of there's a lot, but things that we could critique. But one of the things is that there's so many of us and we're so opinionated and we're always out there giving them the opinions and we're always like, they don't listen. But actually, sometimes I think some of the problems is they listen too much to us. I mean, I always chuckle when I'm doing a review and I feel like a compulsion when I do a review that I need to, I need to critique something, right? I got to be like, oh, here's some, because again, try to give somebody a fair assessment. Like, here's some things I love, but here's some things you might want to be concerned about. And sometimes when I'm doing that, I'm thinking, I don't know, this sucks. Because I'm like, they did it. They made this. It's probably perfect. But, you just feel compulsive. And I think we're all like guitar players like that. Like, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? And I think every time we make a reverse headstock, I think they get a grief out of it. Paul says, oh, by the way, G&L has 65 employees. So there you go. Like I said, not a huge company by any means. More than I thought they'd have. And that might be now because of the guitar boom. I bet you they're up from when I went there. I would bet you 65 is not the number they had when I was there back in 2019 before the boom. Maybe it was 2018 before the boom. Actually, I think it was October 2018. So about a year and a half, not quite a year and a half before the guitar boom. Armit says, Squire CV Strat Bridge upgrade suggestion, please. The issue is I don't know what you don't like about your bridge pickup. So that's the problem. That's the problem. I find that when complaining about, and I mean me personally, complaining about single coil pickups in Strat style guitars, the bridge pickup is the thing I complain the most about because when it's wrong, it just sounds horrible. I think bridge pickups are the thing that, they're just hard to get right. It's hard to get the mid-range and the warmth out of them that you need and not sound bassy and muddy. And a lot of times, you have to make a decision. Do you go for the clarity or do you go for the muddiness? But when they get them right, they sing. One thing I would tell you is it depends on, again, if you're using overdrive, if you're playing clean, what are you doing with this pickup? And keep in mind the other problem that you have is sometimes when you pick a great pickup for the bridge, then it has, in contrast, is very bad to your middle and neck pickups as well. So I don't know if I would actually suggest replacing the bridge pickup in the guitar. What I would suggest is actually replacing them all, getting a set of pickups. I really kind of find that's the best way to handle that if that's the problem, because even if you like the middle and the neck position, I would say maybe get a whole set. Drop in ready, especially on a guitar like that. Just get a preloaded pick guard. I really like the preloaded pick guard concept for guitars like Squires and stuff. It's a lot of money. I understand that, but I believe it really will save you money in the long run. Because when you buy these pick guards preloaded and they're as low as $100 to as high as $500. I mean, there's every spot in between, but they're usually going to be close to what the guitar costs. In the $200-$300 range. They're expensive, right? But think about this. You get to unload the old pick guard, put in the new one, and enjoy the guitar. And my big thing is that if you decide one day not to do that guitar, you just put the old pick guard in, sell it off, put that guitar in your next one. So there you go. There you go. That's what I really suggest. Simon says, all Strat bridge pickups sound horrible. That is not... Well, obviously, if that's how you feel, it's how you feel. But I don't agree with that, is what I want to say. I think, like I said, when they're right, they are like angels singing. They're just amazing. They can be the most, to me, that's why it's important that they're right. And I can cite tons of guitar players that play on the bridge of a Strat, and it sounds fantastic. And all kinds of genres, of music, even rock and stuff, And look at Yngwie. He plays on a single coils and he plays on the bridge. You have Biffy Clyro, the guitar player and singer of Biffy Clyro, plays on a Strat on the bridge. In fact, I love Biffy just for this reason. He plays a Strat bridge pickup into a metal zone, and I think it sounds amazing. It just sounds amazing. To the point where the first time I heard him talking about that, I was like, he's just punking everybody, right? There's no way that he's doing that. He is. And so, like I said, when the pickup is right, they are beautiful. The only problem is you're right. The majority of them are not good for a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons. It's funny. Richard says Strats are all about the 4 and the 2. He's talking about the positions. Yes, players do lend to them. Strat bridge for Jason is fuzz only for him. That makes sense. My only thing that sucks that I tell you guys is, Eric Johnson, play every day, says Eric Johnson, ? Bridge pickup. Yeah, he uses bridge pickup as well too. I mean, he uses all positions, but yeah, they use the bridge pickups. You can tell when a Strat player doesn't use a bridge pickup. They yank them out and put some kind of mini humbucker in there and stuff, and then they use them, but that tells you that they weren't using the single coil. Usually, if you see for the most part, if you see a Strat player with a stock single coil bridge pickup, it either means that they're using it, it means they like the way it sounds and they're using it, or like I said, maybe they're never on it. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's true. But here's the only bad news that I have for you guys. Very rarely have I come across a bridge pickup that's cheap that sounds good for single coils. That is not as common. Usually the best ones are expensive. Sean says, Phil, why are signature amps and pedals not as popular as signature guitars? Well, amps by definition don't sell anything as well as guitars. So, I mean, it's just doing the math of it. It's just a breakdown of look how many guitars the average guitar player has versus how many amps. Whatever it is, it will be proportionally correct. It's very rare when they're equalized or greater. In other words, you never see anybody, if you see somebody with 2 guitars, they have 1 amp. You see somebody with 5 guitars, they have 2 amps. I'm just giving you guidelines, of course. See somebody with 20 guitars, they have 5 amps. They have 50 guitars, they might have 10 amps. This equation, whatever that is, will keep going that way. Very rarely you're going to see somebody go, I have 15 guitars and 15 amps. It's not very common. And very rarely do you see somebody say, I have 2 guitars and 10 amps. So, and even if you, like I said, somebody will always go, oh, no, you don't understand, my friend, or I have 6 amps and only 1 guitar. Like, you're the exceptions, you're not rules. The rule is that it will flow. So for every amp, there's so many more guitars sold. So that is a big part of it. Now, pedal-wise, it actually, I think it's because it's not about signature pedals not selling well. Pedals, in general, sell a very specific way, which is why they found themselves to be very successful on YouTube platform. Think about this. If you would have just known 10 years before YouTube started, or this gear stuff started, to invest in a pedal company. That's why all these pedal guys are killing right now, and have been killing, because the YouTube platform is almost like it was made for pedals. Let me explain. Pedals work in this very specific way, which is when they first launch, which is why they launch one every day, they sell like crazy and they die super fast. It is very rare for a pedal to continue to sell well after its first initial launch. Usually they die very quickly. So, and sometimes, even if they're still going, it's nothing comparative to its first launch. Very few pedals become this iconic thing that you continue to sell and sell and sell. In Keeley's world, think about this, Robert Keeley's world. Keeley's #1 selling pedal is his compressor. Makes sense because it's like an industry standard product and it's a great compressor, okay? But here's what's funny about that. As anyone would tell you, that is almost absurdly crazy to say that the #1 selling pedal in a brand of pedals is the compressor, because the compressors do not sell equal, or not even close to numbers that distortion boxes and all the other ones sell. So, but in Keeley's world, I think his #1 selling pedal is his compressor. Then his #2 is the Caverns, which is reverb delay, and the #3 is the D&M drive, which is that pedal show's drive. That's his 3rd selling pedal, which is a signature model. And so signature pedals do well. They just don't sustain very long. They got to come up with new versions. Again, all of a sudden there's like, oh, there's a limited edition color, or hey, here's a new version of that pedal. Pedals are all about like a new thing, unless they hit, like I said, very few pedals become the Blues Driver, the Tube Screamer. You know what I mean? The the Boss TU tuner. I don't know. I'm just trying to think what. Like I said, the Keeley compressor, right? Very few pedals become this like, oh, iconic thing to where they just sell every day and they need no promotion and they need no reinvention. They just become iconic. So that's why. Where guitars, and here's why. It could be also, again, marketing concepts. Every signature artist, if you see them with the guitar. You don't necessarily see their pedal board every time you see them, performing or talking or something like that. Plus, guitars are exciting. Pedals are exciting too, but guitars are more exciting. So that would be my thought process on that. Again, just a thought. That's why I tell every pedal company I've ever talked to, by the way, their goal, I think every pedal company's goal should be try to figure out how to hit a home run. Just one. That's it. That's all I think it takes. I think if you are lucky enough in the pedal industry, in the guitar and the amp industry too, if you look how many companies have had successful hits, they just seem to never die. If they can get that one thing going, it just never dies. So... Gunner43 says, "Hey Phil, good show. Do you have a guitar you've kept for no good reason or even thought it was crap?" A guitar for no... Yeah, it's my Dana Scoop. It's not crap. It's just what? Do I have a good reason for it? No. I have no intention to play it in the next 10 years, much less the next 10 minutes or 10 days or 10 weeks. I don't play it. Very rarely does it come out of the gig bag. It's not collectible or worth anything. People ask, they ask crazy money for them. Crazy mean like $800-900 now. That's crazy for those things. Yeah, that's guitar. And you've seen it from time to time. It's red. It's just there. I plugged it in. You know what I did? I did a funny thing during COVID. I put new pickups in it, and I put an X2 in, DiMarzio X2 in, and I forgot what I put. A Fast Track 1, I think, in the middle neck position. It was red covers. Stuck it in there and hoping to inject some life into it. Oh, well, if I made it the ultimate shred machine, I'd use it because I don't have a shred guitar. And I plugged in and I go, that sounds good. In fact, I think I could tell you right now, I think I plugged in thinking, they sound good, but I don't know if they sound good as the other pickups I had in it, but I didn't want to swap them back because it was too much work. Put them back in the gig bag. And so yeah, there's guitars like that for sure that, I just don't play. The older I get, the more removed I get from certain types of guitars and tones, but I still romanticize them. And I've also learned the hard way that if you let them go, it's one lonely night when you're just sitting up, you can't sleep, and you're on the computer and you're like, I wonder what those are going for now. And the next thing you know, you ordered one and you're like, what did I do that for? So sometimes it's better just to keep it. So that way, when that middle of the night thing happens, you go, maybe I'll go to the closet, pull it out and play it for a few minutes. Fret Level Midnight says, "Hey Phil, you see the Black Pearl Shijis 754 plus tax, shipped with insane specs, a Chinese guitar fully loaded. I'd actually buy, no more $1,100 US dollar BS." Well, obviously, like I said, the Shiji video was a funny thing because you guys have been asking about that gold Shiji guitar for months and months and months, and this was something I was going back and forth with them. And there's more to that story. The unfortunate part is I can't ever talk about it, or I probably never. So I don't want to like tease you guys, but I was able to hook them up with some other companies and maybe get some other business lines going for them, which is cool. And the reason is because again, I can only tell people what I honestly feel. I'm not saying I'm right. I never tell any company, hey, I'm right, and you should listen to me. I just tell people what I honestly feel. In their case, what I honestly felt transitioned. It translated into fact. In other words, I had told Shiji the guitar was flawless. I tell companies those all the time. If you make a great product, that's the hardest thing. If you got the great product, you've done it. That's like you killed the hard work. Now it's just letting people know about it. But sometimes what they don't understand, and Shiji didn't understand at first either, was letting people know about it is sometimes putting it at a price that lets people impulse buy it out. You need to hear your friends going, especially with them. You need to hear friends. Not only friends say it's good. that they ordered it and they got it. I was trying to explain to them, like, people are freaky about things like this. This whole ordering a guitar and giving somebody $1,000+ and then I hope I get this guitar. Some guy on YouTube said it's good who got one for free, and right? He's trustworthy. I'm just picking on myself. So being trustworthy is one thing, but like I can't tell you. So I honestly gave them an answer. What would it take for me, not being sent one, for me to pull the trigger and playing it, and that's tough because I have the thing that you don't have, which is I have the experience of the guitar, which is very good. It's a very good experience. In fact, it's behind me right there. And I think it came across in that video. If you didn't see, I actually like the cheaper one better than the gold one. In fact, I talked to Shiji, but I don't know how fast it's going to happen, but I ordered the hardtail Strat version in gold because I'm going to keep this one and that, and I'm probably not going to keep the gold one. So because as nice as that is with the upgrades, I actually, like I said, I preferred that bridge. I love this color. It worked out great. The point of this that I'm telling you is that what was interesting about this was I told him this. What isn't in the video, because again, I kind of reserved this stuff to you guys to talk to you guys about. What really happened was I told him all this stuff that I said in the video. What I didn't say in the video, because it wasn't really kind of like that time to talk about it, was they had sent some guitars to some other channels who did videos, and they weren't seeing sales from that. And that's the red flag. You know what I mean? So then they came back to me and said, again, very kind. Everybody's always very kind, right? They said, hey, look, we're seeing what you said, that people aren't going to buy this. They're not buying it. And they go, what do you think? And here's what actually worked out for the viewers and not them. When they asked me what I thought, I told them, but that was before Christmas. If they asked me now what I think they should have done, $849, $899. I think they should have been up $50 to $100 more than they are now because, the market's inflated a little bit. But still, doesn't matter. $799 is the right price. And again, it gets guitars out there. You got to get the guitars out there. They're, like I said, they're a small builder. They're just trying to do what they love and build guitars. That's all. I mean, what can you say about that? So, but yeah. Good guitars, very good guitars. And maybe one day we'll be able to talk about the deal or the thing that we helped them with. But it's way too soon to talk about it now. New Wave Dave 169 says, Epiphone 59 Les Paul or Sire L7? That's easy, an easy answer for me. It's all about the neck. The Epiphone 59 neck is going to be chunky as hell, just like a real R9 would be. It's a thick neck. That's something you need to be aware of. So aside from tones, aside from the stuff, here's the thing. For most players, it's really consistent when it comes to how something sounds versus how it feels. If it sounds, if I could tell you that the Gibson or Epiphone 59 sounded better than the L7, that'd be great. I can't tell you that because I have never played the 59 Epiphone. I just know the neck is spec'd out exactly like my R9, and my R9 is a beastly thick neck. So you have to be prepared for that. If you're prepared for that, I think you'll love that guitar and you should go for it. If you're not, you could definitely get the L7. So the Sire guitars are very good. Sire is definitely like I said, one of those companies, they're really focused on getting their brand out there, and they're focused. And why I tell you guys this, and this is why it's important, is this. What they're focused on is beating everybody right now because they want you to buy their guitars. So they're about making sure the guitars are finished well, they're done well. That's the advantage to you guys. So we live in a time when you can tell when a company's cashing in off their legacy or cashing in off their brand or trying to sell you something with experience. Each experience. A perfect example. I have a video coming soon. I don't know if it's going to go on the second channel or not, but I made a crazy expensive purchase recently with a Gibson that went, well, I don't want to say bad. Let's just say, I don't know if sad. The only thing I'm concerned about in the video is my reaction is very melancholy because I was like, oh, that didn't work out. But the retailer I bought it from obviously is a legitimate retailer, so I knew I was covered if there was a problem. There was obviously some problems, but crazy to see. Crazy. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. What that experience was to see a brand new Gibson at that kind of price range. And I'll probably ruin the video for you now because it's not. But I'll tell you, not only was it it's just I don't want to say unbearable. That's not what I'm saying. I was just really shocked. The level of quality for the price point was just astronomically out of skew. And so obviously I had to move on. And that's why some of you have asked, that's why there's a beautiful Fender custom shop journeyman right there. That's where that came from. That's what I decided to do. I went and found one I could physically touch and moved that way with it. And I'm not going to say that was my last Gibson I ever bought, but I'm going to say it's going to be a long time before I give Gibson money anymore. That was just my last Gibson purchase with my ES335. I had to sand the neck a little bit, and buff it a little bit, which, it was during COVID, the middle height of lockdown. Things are going crazy. The world's crazy. It was a $3,000 guitar that a dealer gave me a discount on. So with a discount, the environment, doing some work, but I'm not saying the world's better now, but the crazy, like I said, just wait for the video. You'll see. It was crazy. It's crazy. In fact, I was telling my wife about it today. I was truly, truly upset because of the fact that I had to think about it over and over again. Do I keep this guitar? And ultimately what I say in the video is and you'll see too, that if I would have kept that guitar, the big issue would be if I ever go to sell it, the first thing somebody says, is this a B stock? This is a B stock guitar, right? And I'd be like, no, it's not a B stock. And then the resale value would be horrible. So we'll see. But just to get your fire going, to you guys, because I said I'm teasing you, we're talking about an over $6,000 price Gibson Les Paul. That's what it costs, and it was. So I would highly recommend the Epiphone because I never would have experienced an Epiphone with these issues. That's what I'm basically trying to get at, is the Epiphones. If you like the neck, get the Epiphone. If you don't like that big neck, go with the L7. Either one of them will probably be better than a $6,000 Les Paul from my experience. Derek says, going to be my first setup on an acoustic. How do I lower the action without sanding the nylon bridge too low? Oh, okay. Great. I like that you added that part. How can I check action without restringing the whole guitar? Thanks, Phil. Feel. I mean, here's the sad thing. Your first setup, okay? You're not going to go fast. So actually don't worry about that part. That's my advice, right? The thing about setting up guitars, thing about working on guitars is slow and steady wins the race. In other words, small movements, small amounts of adjustment, and then recheck, okay? The fast tricks, a lot of times don't exist. And then when they do, it comes from years of doing it. The fact is that's why some people are very misleading with their commentary about repairs and setups, especially setups. Like guitar players will casually say, oh, I would never pay somebody for a setup. I can do it in 5 minutes. Well, if you know how to do it, it's very fast. But the first couple times are very slow. I still think people should try to do it, of course. But a lot of times what you're paying for is speed. Of course, if you gave me that classical guitar, I could set up way faster than you, or you think it was at a steel string, just at acoustic. I could set up faster than you with experience. But I believe in my experience and my heart, if that's a thing I want to say, my heart and my heart. Derek, in my heart, I believe you can set up a guitar as good as I can, if not better. I just don't think you can do as fast as me. So, and maybe not as consistent because obviously you're just starting, but you can do it as well. It just takes you more time. So what I would suggest is exactly that. You do have, what I can tell you is, here is the trick that we use, we being most guitar techs, when it comes to acoustic guitars and sanding the saddle on them to lower action. You get yourself a capo and you loosen the strings, just get them loose. You'll know, it's very intuitive. As loose as you think you can go without unspooling from the tuning keys. You capo the guitar somewhere probably around the 10th fret. It depends on, where your heel of the acoustic lands. Sometimes it's on about the 12th fret or whatever. Just somewhere on the 11th fret, 9th fret, right? Somewhere like that. You get a sense of it. Just capo it, okay? Once you capo the strings, now you can, if they're loose, now you should be able to pull the pins, pull the strings out of the way and lift the saddle out. Does that make sense? I probably have videos showing you this. And then you can sand it, but you got to sand it on a flat surface. It needs to be perfectly flat. And then you sand the block a little bit. And sometimes if you have a caliper, that's great. If not, you can use a guitar pick, use something for a sight measurement. Look at what you think, how low it should go, whatever you think it is, cut that in half at least. So if you think it should go down like this month, go half as much as that or even less. Take it off, sand it down, put it back in, pull the strings, put them back into the pegs, plug them all back in, right? Make sure they're seated correctly. Take the capo off and start tuning the guitar back up. Give it a play, figure out from there. But the other thing I would tell you is don't try to nail it the first try. If you lowered the bridge a little bit, give it a play for a little while, maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe a day. And then, because sometimes what happens is people get caught up in this, like, I need an extreme difference. This is high, it needs to be super low. And what you realize is sometimes what players do, especially on their first setups that are very tough, is they lower action. This is electric guitars, basses, acoustics, doesn't matter. You lower the action, you play it and you go, that doesn't feel dramatically different. I'm done. And you forget sometimes you don't need dramatically different. You just need to play well. And sometimes playing well has nothing to do with the action. Sometimes just, like I said, maybe the angle changes enough. Maybe it is a little lower. So again, and of course, if you watch any of my videos, you know, always measure where you start and where you're at. And that tells you a better picture than your fingers and your feelings, right? So if you're at 2 millimeters and you go to 1.75, or you go 1.5, you in your head, you know, especially if you watch any of my reviews, which is why I do so many reviews like this now, and is why I'm measuring all the time, is you know what you can get away with. On an acoustic guitar, if you're at 2.5 millimeters, I bet you'll never get better than 1.5 no matter what. So here's what you know. If you're at 2.5 and you go to 2, you already know when you're done your playing, like, I want to go a little lower, you maybe not want to, because you only get to go to 1.75, right? Is that really taking it all apart again and doing it all over again? So there you go, something like that. How are we doing? We're doing good. Let me do the last. Let's make sure everybody knows. I'm super impressed my voice made it to this show. I'm gonna say Vakok. Probably butchered that name. That's the last super chat, so no more super chats, please. Hold on a second. We have Meester. Meester says, John Mayer's amazing player and good dude, but his pop stuff isn't my cup of tea. You have to listen to Neon. Hold on. I'm going to get into this because this is great that you brought this up. It says, I want to like it, but it seems cheesy. I adore Miles Davis, but mean guy. Okay, that went weird. Okay, I'm glad you like Miles Davis. Okay, I'm going to tell you the thing about John Mayer for me is the same thing that happened with Mark Knopfler. Okay, and some of you guys, please, I hope you guys will understand this. It's in the age in which you discover things. When I first heard Dire Straits, I heard, like a lot of people my age, the first song I heard was Money for Nothing and Chicks for Free or whatever on MTV. And that just was like, that might as well just been like Boy George and pop music. Like, I was just like, that's not real. That's not rock. Right? But I don't know what that is. That's just like, blah. Right? And so one day I heard Sultan's Swing, right? And I'd heard it many times before as a pop song in my head. In my head, it was on the radio station that my mom listened to. It was like a pop song. I was like, this is a pop song. And then for some reason, my ear caught Mark Knopfler playing. And all of a sudden, as a guitar player, I was like, what is he doing? Like, that's amazing. What is he? He's like, he hasn't stopped playing stuff. Like, he's playing in between the singing and he's playing during the singing. And it's not just chords, he's playing. And it was just fantastic. And so here's the thing about this. Mark Knopfler is definitely, like, I would put him in my, like, most iconic guitar players, like top 100 guitar players all time, something like that. He's a fantastically iconic guitar player. And the reason is because, not because he's a great guitar player, that is important to this. He's also a guitar player that did exactly what I discovered later from so many other musicians, from Prince to Steve Stevens, to like all kinds of guitar players, where I can say, where they can play pop music, but man, kill it, just kill it. I mean, they're playing the technique; it's just there, and because it was mixed into pop style music, in other words, popular sounding music, it just didn't resonate with me. John Mayer did the same thing. I always tell everybody, sometimes the problem with John Mayer is if you're trying to figure out, because that's really what this is about, these conversations. You're trying to figure out, why are all these guitar dudes like John Mayer, right? First of all, if you're not into the blues, that's part of it because he does a lot of blues stuff. But that is not where I think you should focus. A lot of the blues and a lot of the admiration that John Mayer has in the blues segment is not just his playing, it's his tone. People really like Continuum, that album, that tone, right? The trio. There's just a tone he has. It's very Hendrix. It's very fat sounding. Eric Johnson-y, kind of like Bonamassa. It's just a really good tone. However, what I find is if you're trying to understand it, you got to listen to his pop music. But if you can't take it, here's what you do. And I'm going to tell everybody the thing. This is the test, okay? There's a John Mayer test, and I can give it to you, okay? I want you to Google or go on YouTube and type in how to play Neon, Neon, by John Mayer. Why? Because it'll probably be somebody playing it without singing it. So you're not going to listen to his voice. You're not going to hear the pop sound. You're just going to watch somebody play that lick, that guitar, the whole guitar, the guitar behind the music. And I want you to understand what you're watching. When you're watching and listening to that, he's singing a poppy song on top of that lick of that guitar playing. And that's where the Mark Knopfler effect comes from, which is it's not that you have to like it or not like it. You will slowly respect the fact that he's the opposite of what pop mostly is, which is a 3-chord progression concept. How basic can I get a song down to a drum beat and just 3 chords is most pop music falls into that kind of that pitfall. He was making pop music with intricate guitar playing, which is really crazy. Does that make you a fan? I don't know. But I will say this, you will see him differently. Even if you go, I still don't like it. Or, hey, I like this, which is very fair. I like this, but I don't like his voice or I don't like the song. That's still fair, but at least it'll teach you. If you're going to appreciate him, I would say that's what I would do. Look up How to Play Neon by John Mayer, or just watch him do it. You know what I mean? But either way, you need to watch somebody play it so your eyes can let you. I know sometimes you need your eyes to hear. It's a silly thing to say, but you do. You need, when you're listening, all you're going to hear is guitar playing. But when you're watching somebody, you're going to go, wow, that's a really impressive passage to put under essentially a very popular Grammy-winning pop song. So I think he won a Grammy on that. I'm not sure. But either way, that's one of his hit pop songs. Brian says, I don't get John Mayer or Silver Sky. Well, Brian's you're a rock guy. You know what I mean? You got to understand, I look at it, I'm no different than most people that wasn't a teenage girl. Okay. Teenage girls probably loved John Mayer from the second they saw him. Okay. He was, he's a pop singer and he was dreamy, right? And he was great. And that's where his audiences were when he started, was all, I like I said, I've seen John Mayer 3 times, maybe 4, but anyways, 3 times. And it's essentially what you expect it to be. It's 95% it's 95% 20-year-old women because they age with him. So he's 40 now. They're probably in their late 20s, early 30s. And 95% women and 5% guitar players with their arm crossed going, just mesmerized or judging him. Either way, it's what it is. What I will tell you is what John Mayer to me, what he represents to me, is to me, Stevie Ray Vaughan was, without Stevie Ray Vaughan, I would have never discovered the blues as a concept, besides the movie Crossroads. But as a musician, right? Stevie Ray Vaughan was a gateway drug for me to the blues. Stevie Ray Vaughan was blues, but he was so much close to rock and roll that when I heard it as someone who was into rock and metal, at the time, because this is, my teenage years, when I heard Stevie Ray Vaughan, I was like, oh, if blues sounded like this, I dig it. You know what I mean? That's kind of how all of a sudden, and then you start digging it so much, you're like, well, now I want to listen to and then this is no exaggeration, this is a true story. After I bought Stevie Ray Vaughan's album and I fell in love with Stevie Ray Vaughan, I bought Buddy Guy. Because then I was like, well, let me listen to something else. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, this is really different. And then you start going, all of a sudden, before you know it, you're a connoisseur of it. You're like, I love the blues. Okay, now we're going to listen to B.B. King, right? And you start discovering all these musicians. John Mayer is kind of he did what Stevie Ray Vaughan did, but to pop music, which is crazier. John Mayer is pop in the blues. Such a weird concept. He's essentially made pop music to where people who listen to it have no idea they're listening to the blues, and some of them figure it out. So that's what he did. Okay. Sorry, I'm just reading some of the comments. Okay. What do we have next? We have Meester did another one. He says, I love my Nita Strauss model Ibanez. Awesome. He says, I love the pickups, neck, lightsaber body, etc. Don't like floating trims. So put a Tremel no following your video. Yeah, a Tremel no is a great way. A tremolo block, any of that stuff works great. Block the trem. Sure. Makes perfect sense. It's I love it. Some players go, no, you're ruining the Floyd Rose. I'm like, well, Eddie's didn't float. So my first Floyd was a floating Floyd, and I thought it was fine. I liked it. And, well, actually it wasn't. It was actually an Ibanez Low Pro, but then it was a Floyd. Either way, same thing. They were floating. And I remember like learning to work with them, and it never seemed like a problem to me because it was like so early on in my guitar playing life. I was so young and doing that stuff. But the first time I played a Floyd Rose with it stuck to the body, or on a Charvel when it was on the body, I remember going, oh, this is awesome. I don't need to pull back. So I was like, this is great. So I like that too. So I tend to like Floyds that are blocked a lot, but I have a lot of Floyds floating too, because I like, the main reason is this. If I was going to use a guitar with a Floyd all the time, I would probably have it blocked. But when I use Floyds now, it's because I want that tremolo. Alex says, hey, Phil, what are your thoughts on modifying relatively expensive guitars, ? Like the PRS community tends to frown upon modding an American-made guitar. Is that something they frown upon? I'm not shocked or anything. It makes sense. What are my thoughts on it? No, here's the deal. It's customizing an instrument to you is exactly that. Customizing an instrument to you. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to understand, people have an emotional reaction to money. Right? All of us are going to agree with that, I think, to some part. It's why when Gibson rolled over the guitars, I say this to this day, if we never saw that, no one would ever care. Nobody would have asked, like, where did all those Gibson robot weird guitars, whatever they ran over, go? It's the physical watching it on a video. Like, oh my goodness, those are guitars, this thing I love, and there's a tractor on top of them. You know what I mean? It's it's a money thing. And so that's the reaction people have. Like if you take, if you take an expensive guitar, look, let me put it this way. If you bought a 65 Fender Strat, a vintage one, a real one, not a reissue, and ripped it out the pickups right now and stuck in noiseless pickups and took the nut off, right, and stuck a Graph Tech nut in there and put locking keys on it, people would faint physically, especially the older dudes with heart conditions. They might have a problem. They might fall. Right. They would faint. However, if like Joe Bonamassa did that, they'd be like, oh yeah. Because they know he's using it and he's gigging with it and this is what he needs it to do. And he's got money and it doesn't really affect him or them. So same thing when you see people, a community or whatever, reacting to like, oh, you bought an expensive guitar and you're modifying it, and they're like, yo, why would you do that? It's because they think there's like, you're damaging the resale value, because sometimes you are. And that upsets them because I'm just going to make this up, but it just sounds great. I'm going to go with it. I think musicians, and I mean females too, musicians react the same way to other musicians modding their guitars sometimes, the way you react to watching a video of somebody get kicked in the balls. It didn't happen to you, but all you can do is emotionally think about like, oh my goodness, what would I do? And oh, I would have blocked, I would have ran, I would have, same thing. I wouldn't have modified it. So that's probably why people don't modify expensive guitars. So that's, like I said, where I found a lot of success. Funny thing on the channel, the thing that really drove the channel's success, for views, for sure, because like I said, I can look at the stats. I know exactly where the channel pops, right, and what popped and what continued to pop. And everybody thought, especially not you guys, every other YouTube channel and other companies thought it was like my modding. Like they're like, oh, he's modifying guitars, and I would have like luthiers that are friends of mine going, like, that's not even impressive what you did. And I said, no, you missed what I did. I didn't show somebody how to fix their guitar. I showed somebody how to fix their guitar and put it back without damaging their guitar. Ultimately, that's really what non-marring modifications. It's what I always call it. I've said that so many times in my videos. Non-marring modifications does not damage, mar, or change the guitar, and you can put it back. Earlier, I was talking about a Squire throwing in a preloaded pick guard to take it out. Why? Because not only am I someone who repairs guitars, and so I can teach you a little bit what I know about repair. I'm also someone who had to buy and sell guitars for a living for over a decade, and I saw the effects of that, and financially. So I would go, oh, okay, well, how do I make a video where you don't have to pay me to do it, and also you can put the guitar back if you sell it? And so that's where a lot of those videos came from. This is how you fix this without, getting out the saw, and that's where that kind of grew, and it's because of this feeling. Back to your initial question or your comment about expensive guitars, I would say the same thing. Is should you modify an expensive guitar to your liking? Absolutely. But should you try to do it as non-marring as possible? Yes, especially in today's day and age. There's almost no reason why you have to drill a new hole in a guitar. It's very rare. You got to go pretty extreme. You got to be doing something crazy. Start drilling holes and start cutting on guitars nowadays. There's an aftermarket part to upgrade almost everything without that stuff. Matt Scott says, how about Hydra? Oh, okay, the Hydra pedal by Keeley. Isn't that the bad people in the Marvel comics, Marvel movies? Have you ever thought about a video on how to wire a cabinet? No. No. I've been hearing a lot of talk of replacing speakers. No, to me, if you're going to rewire, there's tons of videos on that. There's cabinet companies that have videos that are very, very well, barely put together. That's done. I've had to reference them too. Like if I was going to rewire a cabinet right now, I can tell you right now, what I do is I do exactly this. I pull down some kind of schematic off the internet. And if I need a real crash course real fast, there's a ton of videos that I'll just pull up and watch. And I tend not to make videos where if I can source a video, then I don't need to make a video on it. I try to make videos where I think there's no source of information, or I watched it and I go, this is not right, or it's not fast enough. Usually most of my videos have to do with speed. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'll watch a video and I go, he's 8 minutes in, he still hasn't told us how to fix this. So, like I said, all of my tech tip videos are to the point where the first thing I eliminate of all my videos, and I highly recommend this to everybody too, is this. Almost every repair video, and I mean not guitars, I don't care if it's air conditioning or whatever, they always start with somebody telling me why they're qualified to do this. I've been an air conditioning guy for 16 years. I've been a plumber for 25 years, and I work at Dawson's Plumbing, and on Thursdays, I like to have meatloaf. And I'm like, great, just show me how to do it. While you're talking, I'll scan the comments to see how crazy you are. Right? If the first 30 comments are, don't listen to this guy, my plumbing exploded, then I might move on. So that's why I go right to it, and I don't talk about like, I've been repairing guitars for 17 years, and let me tell you, right? So back to the speaker thing. There's nothing I can add to that. So I would suggest you watch, like I said, I tell you which ones, but I just Google like I said, go on YouTube and type in, search how to wire up a speaker cabinet. There's a couple that are just got tons of views and they dominate the videos, and they're good. And I think the ones I all watched are from a smaller cabinet company that makes cabinets. Dale says, Phil, I have an EC1000 that's an LTD and an EC500. Both have EMG 8160s in them, the same pots and wiring, but the EC1000 has a different tone than the EC500. What could be wrong? Thanks and love the channel. Nothing. I know we talk about EMGs. The joke is EMGs are like A1 steak sauce. Whether on steak or on cardboard, it tastes the same. I love that saying. Even though I love EMGs, I think that's what EMGs can bring to the party. They can make every guitar sound, I don't want to say the same, but they're going to sound like EMGs. Very rarely your EMG is not going to make your guitar sound like EMGs. That being said, I don't ever, as you know, I really don't go down the tone wood. Oh, the tone wood on that guitar, the tone, the finish and stuff. But here's what I like to talk about. Guitars are different. They do sound different. Could it be, like I said, that's why the argument can make me nuts. If somebody was like, oh, it's not the wood, it's the capacitor, it's the height of the pickups, which is important. That's what I'm basically going to go down this road. The height of the pickups can be different. The pickups, although the same, could be different, right? Like I said, you guys know I wind and make pickups, and I match all my pickups. To do that, I have to make like 20, 30 pickups, and then I match them all together to where I think they're going to be the best, and then I kind of test them and stuff. That all being said, they're different. right? Companies that are very good at, I think some of the most consistent companies at making pickups are like companies like Paul Reed Smith. His tune capacitance inductance system, his idea of I'm going to make the same pickup every time. That's basically like how I like to paraphrase that. Is very consistent. I think Gibson pickups are some of my favorite pickups of all time. So, you know, I love Gibson pickups. I don't know what it is. It's like even crappy Gibson pickups. When I say crappy, I mean people tell me they're crappy pickups. I tend to like them too. So my ears definitely seems to go to where the Gibson pickups sound. That being said, they're different. Pickups are different. Components are different. Things are different. And sure, it could be the nut. It could be the bridge. It could be anything that's causing the guitars to be different. It's very hard to get because you're talking about two different models, but the same model, but two different versions. I'm telling you that if you bought two identical LTD EC1000s, identical color paint, identical color weight, identical weight, same pickups, measure the height, the potentiometers armors came from the same batch because there's batches. That's why they mark them. The same battery with the same amount of juice in each battery, you still probably would have a problem with two of them sounding identical. So here's what I would tell you. That all is my tirade on that, but let me give you the advice that might help you. Don't compare them. What I want you to do is, obviously you like one better, the way this question reads. Something is different in the tone. And I guess the EC1 or 500 is the one you don't like as much as the EC1000. I could have it backwards, but that's how I'm kind of reading this. You like the 1000 more, the 500 doesn't sound as good. What I caution everybody, and YouTube add to this problem, and I'm guilty too. I try to back away from doing as many as comparison videos are just a nightmare, because comparing is important for learning and also gauging especially if you're making a purchase online. Sometimes if I compare two things, that might help you make the decision because you can hear the contrast. But I always caution everybody this one piece of advice. Don't compare your guitars. What I want you to do is don't compare those two guitars. Maybe wait a day or two. Pick up the EC500 and play it and just decide for yourself if you like it. Not if you like it as much as the other one, because don't worry about that. Just do you like it? If you like it, you keep it. If you don't like it, then it must move on. But that's what I've learned. My strats sound so different than each other, but I don't actually go like, this is my good sounding one. I just go, they sound different. And, and as long as I like them, I like them. You know what I mean? So that's what I would caution you on. But all those things I mentioned, you can check. Pickup heights, batteries, all that stuff. Make sure the strings are broken in the same way. Strings are a huge part of it. That's why, like I said, it gets a little tricky. This is the stuff you learn when you do all these videos on YouTube. It gets really crazy. What people think they hear in videos, you have to be very consistent in what you do, because it's almost like you have a chain of custody on stuff, because sometimes when people go, that sounded bright, and it's really because the strings were new. This sounds darker because the strings were old. Here I am, you're trying to hear a guitar, but you're going to hear those strings come through no matter what. So it really gets crazy. Which is why I tend to lean into the verbal communication of it, what I'm experiencing, and then try to build a rapport with everybody that's honest, so that when you hear what I'm experiencing, you can trust me, because I haven't led you wrong before. And so even though you're like, kind of sounds bright, but he's saying it's not that bright in the room, it's because I can't control what speaker you listen to and what YouTube's doing, what the mic heard. Justin says, I can't believe I finally caught this live. Me neither, Justin. Thank you. I can't believe it. I do believe it. I believe it. I believe you, Justin, that you caught. I thank you for commenting and joining me live, man. I appreciate it. Piss poor pitch. I like that. Any suggestions on how to clean my Martin guitar tuning pegs? Metal. Recently moved and live on Chesapeake Bay. Nice and cold for you. Tuning pegs are tarnished badly. Never happened before. Could this be related to salt water? It could be. It could be. Salt air is corrosive, man. It's bad. It's why, we where I live. It's so funny because it's coming up because of the great migration that's happened in the United States because of COVID. All these people from other places. you'll be driving down the road here and someone will go, oh, look, out of state car. And you go to look at the plate and you laugh because they're not looking at the plate. You just see rust on the car. There's no rust on cars here. Like no car's rusted here ever. My wife and I were following a Toyota 4Runner that had a square, maybe you guys can explain this, had a square about this big. Okay. So, you know, maybe about 6 inches by 8-inch square. So I guess it's a rectangle. Had a rectangle on the corner of the hatch where it was just rusted. and my wife goes, why is it just rusted in that square? And I go, I don't know. And I looked and I saw a Wisconsin plate. I go, I don't know, they're from Wisconsin. Like we were just like, for us, it was like rust is alien. So, because there's no salt and there's no moisture here. But anyways, back to your problem. Yes, I would imagine that's the problem. You can wipe them down. I use Music Nomad stuff. That's what I swear by now. I use that for everything. Some players like other things, but the Music Nomad stuff for polishing hardware, I absolutely love it. I've switched to all of it. Oh man, it would have been perfect if I had it in here, but it's in the other room. I even started buying their I buy the big containers in bulk from them. I like to point out, like they don't give me any of that stuff. That's not sponsored. They don't sponsor that stuff. I bought all of it from Sweetwater. What happened was exactly what you hope for in a video. Music Nomad sent me a smattering of their products, and I did a video. This is like 2 years ago, and I did a video of it going through all their products, and then because I had them, I started using them, and slowly I just found myself using theirs. And then here's what's funny: I ran out of other products, and even though I had tons of other products in the shop, I just rebought Music Nomad stuff. So I'd use that to clean this stuff. I find it does everything just beautifully. And if somebody has suggestions in the comments of something that's a little less expensive, maybe listen to them. But like I said, I can swear by that stuff because I'm buying it and I like it. Mike says, thanks, Phil. You've become my Friday night. Thank you, man. He says, that sounds weird. Nah, it doesn't sound weird. This show is my Friday night because after I talk to you guys, I like index the thing for about 2 hours. So this is how I spend my Fridays. Justin says, I was changing knobs on my Fender Cyclone and I snapped the pot in half. Oh, yeah, that happens. Forcing me to Amazon a soldering kit and new pots. Yep, that happens. I think you just wanted to share the pain with us. Yes. The important part is this, Justin. You got a new part, you got a new soldering gun, and you did it yourself. Everybody should know how to solder. It's some basic repair things. Everybody should know how some basic repair things work. And good for you. Steven says, thanks for all you do. How do I wire the super long ground wire bridge to control cavity on my SG Husk to the first pot? All pots. Output jack? No. Are you the bridge wire? Oh, okay. Let's just easy part. He wants to know he's talking about the bridge, the ground wire that's coming off his bridge in the cavity. He wants to know where he solders it. It's really long. Just because it's long, this is a great question. I love questions like this. This is actually happens. This is an email I actually get pretty often, which is, you guys will open up cavities, and because a wire is really long or short, you feel like, even though there's a clear path to where you can solder it, you're like, I shouldn't solder there. Why would they give me an extra 3 inches of wire if it wasn't meant to go somewhere else? Don't worry about that. Just complete the circuit the way it needs to be done. So in that case, the bridge can be soldered right to the back. Anything that's going to complete the grounding circuit to right to the potentiometer. My guess is all your potentiometers are grounded out. You can solder right to them. I generally do what most people do. I solder to the nearest thing that I can solder to. So if it's coming off the bridge and it's coming out of the hole on the side and the first thing there is a pot, I'll go right to that because it's right there. I leave just a little bit of room in case I ever need to get in there. If you don't want to cut it, you can solder it. You can solder it to the ground on the output jack because it's just going to, again, it's think of it this way. The ground circuit, anything you touch to it now is part of the ground. It's just going to be grounded out. So you could do that. I don't know if I would do that, but you can. You already know, if you don't want to cut the wire, just do it that way or just leave excess wire in there. Just ground it, but it just needs to be grounded to something. Bill says, hey, Phil, you are awesome. Bill, you are awesome. I have a made in Mexico Strat, skunk stripe slightly raised. Can I sand it without hurting value? And if I could, one more Parker P38. $550 worth it. I don't know what the current Parker P38s are going for, but I would say no. I would say not buy it. I would say no Parkers if you don't have to pay too much for them, are a bad idea because they're never going to make Parkers again. And you know the saying, as you guys said earlier, never say never. But I mean, there's just not going to be Parkers again. So Parkers are not going to go up in value because part of the equation is not that they don't make something. It's part of the equation is that they don't make something and people want it. And let's be honest, not a lot of people want Parkers. But if you think you want a Parker, this was a question earlier, right? Should you buy something or now or later? I would say if you want to buy a Parker, you should try to find the best deal you can as soon as you can and then get it because they're not going to get better. Because it's not only are the prices probably not going to come down, they're not going to be easier to find. And that's probably going to be the problem. There's just not a lot of Parkers, even the 38s and stuff, which are the import ones. So that's easy. Do your skunk stripe issue on the back of your neck of your guitar, can you sand it without hurting the resale value? Here's what I would suggest to you if you could do. Sometimes you get very lucky with those when they lift out. Because what happens is, as you can imagine, the walnut stripe being different than the maple. Oh, by the way, Scott Grove says he loves his Parker. See, you know what it is? Like, I love my Parker too. I find that it's like you either get them or don't, right? People just don't get them, or I love them. I've always thought they were cool, and it's sad that they're never going to come back. And like I said, you could say never, but or you could say they might come back, but they're owned by the company that owns them. I don't think has any interest to ever bring them back, and they're not valuable enough to sell to somebody. So we'll see. But back to your skunk stripe issue. If you're lucky and it's very, very, back to the walnut. The walnut stripe, what's happened is the maple probably shrunk and then it's lifted out. That's usually what happens, right? Kind of pushes it out. The lift is very subtle. If it's very dramatic, you have a bigger problem. But either way, there is a fix you can do. I would get some 4/0 steel wool. You could do 0/0, but I would do 4/0. And so definitely go down. It's cheap. Go down to your auto parts store, go to the Walmart. Walmart will have it in the auto section. It's dirt cheap. Okay. And if you have to, tape up your pickups and stuff, but you shouldn't have to because you're going to put the guitar facing down on your bench and you're going to be on just the back of the neck. And then just rub that over the entire neck and don't try to sand it. Try to buff. You're trying to buff the lip. And what's going to happen is you're not trying to sand the finish off because that's why you're doing this because it's a light finish on the guitar. You're trying to get it to where the edges smooth over to where you can't feel them. You're really going to feel those edges more than you actually feel it lifted out. So once you smooth them over, it'll just kind of feel like the neck's just rounded. It's very common. I can do it in 2 minutes. I've done it for thousands of people. I don't know, hundreds of guitar players over the years. And the reason I say this is because you're not going to wear through the finish and it's going to smooth it out and you should be fine. You can use micro mesh and all kinds of sandpaper. Don't just use this. Even if people say, you don't get that stuff on your magnets, you don't. But just trust me, it's not that hard to do. That is what I would recommend. And then also just check to make sure the contrast is nice. And if the headstock looks different now because you've kind of done that to the neck, then just do the whole headstock. You'll have to take the tuning keys off and do the whole the back of the headstock and the sides. Don't do the front of the headstock. There's no reason to. And just do that. Richard said you can use lemon oil to moisturize it. You can, except for, here's the problem. The problem is, in fact, before I would even use any kind of oil-based moisturizers or anything like that, if I was really going to try to use moisture, I would actually use humidity. So maybe if you have a cold humidifier, you can put it in a room with that thing, or you can put it in a case with a humidifier. Do that. But here's the problem in my experience with these is that the problem is like I said, the maple's kind of pushed it out. So that's the issue. It's not like the fret sprout where the fretboard shrank in, the frets are poking out, and maybe humidifier will get that fretboard to expand back out. The problem is that even if you get the maple to relax, you'd still have to push that in. And I would recommend, if you don't know what you're doing, not doing that because you want to press it in with a fitted press, because otherwise you'll dent the neck. So you can try a humidifier. You can. But my experience is it's not going to work. Most times it's not going to work. Not for the skunk stripe. Not for lifting out. Because the way it did it, it pushed it out. And the steel will probably fix it in seconds. And it won't hurt the value of the guitar, because essentially all it's going to look like is what it looked like before. Even if they did gloss treatment to it, it's going to look nice, because it's going to look like nice. It's going to look like Fender did it. So Tampa Blue says, curious as to how many songs viewers know by heart and can play at the drop of a hat without practicing a refresher. I don't know. That's a really strange question, Tampa Blues. Think about this. I love Heart, but I don't know if I could even name more than 2 or 3 songs. But I like them. Tobias says he's really curious about the Dirty Shirley. Am I missing out on the standard or the twin sister or the mini, or is it the mini perfect? Going for the darkness tone. I have, okay, so the thing about the twin sister, the standard, the full size, and the twin sister, the Dirty Shirley is the same. It's basically the same. I asked the Friedman guys. I asked them if there was something significantly different about it, and they were like, "No, not really." The twin sister adds features. Obviously, the idea to make 2 channels, so to speak. It adds the deep contour control. But essentially, I think there's a position on the deep contour control where you set it, and it would be just like the original. So to answer your question, the standard and the twin sister are basically the same in every way for sound wise, in my opinion. And that's what they said, and I kind of agree with what I've heard. That all being said, there's things I like about both. I have the mini and I have the twin sister. The twin sister is not as distorted as the mini because the fact that it's got more headroom. So you're never gonna, besides gigging live and cranking it, you're not gonna crank it to get the distortion. So you can get more gain out of the mini than you can the full size head at comfortable volume level. I honestly, at this point, this is how I feel. If you don't need a clean channel, because that's what the twin sister is going to give you, is the ability to have a cleaner channel to switch to. If you don't need that cleaner channel, I would just go with the mini. I really like the mini. I have both. If I ever go to one, it's probably going to be the mini. And I like the twin sister a lot. But I mean, it's like I said, cost-wise, that's the problem. As you can know, it's almost double the price. Double the price? Nah. I think the mini is a really good deal for the deal you can get on it. Vakok, Vakok. I'm going to say it that way on purpose. Says he ordered a glary telly after your video recommendations for electronics and tuner under $200 for Fretworks. Big fan, thanks. Well, I would stick, like I said, I know I took a glary and I decked it out because I did that video. And I was in a mood, as you know. When I did that video, like I said, if you guys didn't see that video, I did a 3-part video where I took a glary and I basically converted it into a pro level guitar. Stainless steel frets, reshaped the neck. It was, looking back, I'm happy I did that video, but I was definitely in a mood. Here's why, because this is before I had the shop. This is when I was still in the garage section. And when I did that, if you look at the date on that video, I think it's in June or July. It was probably 100, and I'm not exaggerating. It was probably 120 degrees in the garage when I worked on the guitar. So I worked on the guitar for 3 days and 120 degrees. Probably because you remember when I'm filming, I can't have a fan on or anything. So I had to turn it off. You're just sitting there and dying. And I can't have the garage door open because there's noise outside. So I was just in there just dying. And all because I was trying to prove to some viewer who told me the guitar should be just, I said it in the video. What he said that got me kind of going was, he says, you should take the guitar and throw it straight to the landfill. I knew what he meant, which is basically, it's a junk guitar. It's an inexpensive guitar. The only thing is I don't believe anything should be, I'm a repairman. I don't think anything should be thrown in the landfill. Like I said, I think we should try to fix and repair and keep things going as long as we can and stop making as much new crap. It's part of the thing I love about guitars. They're forever, right? They don't end up in landfills. You constantly they change hands from people to people and people. So that being said, that's why I did that. This is where it's a little tricky. I kind of wish I did a disclaimer in that video, like, hey, by the way, I'm doing this because of this principle and because I think it'll be illustrating a point, and also it's a good video. At least I think it was entertaining. Although I would not ever. I think when I did the math later, and I mean later, months later, I was looking and I think it was like $800. If you figure my labor, right? Labor, parts, it was like $800 worth of stuff on a guitar. So the reason I tell you that is don't do that. If you're going to fix up your glary, I would go to Guitar Fetish. I would definitely keep it under $200. Like I said, just fix it up and use inexpensive parts. And I think you'll be happy with the results. And at that point, I think anyways, any of those kind of inexpensive parts companies that make stuff, make good enough stuff that are going to be improvement over what Clary puts in their guitars. So, okay. Dave 6RTT6 says we get heat like that too. Yeah, it's nuts. It's what used to keep people away from us, but now everybody lives here. Arizona's like, we call it Calizona now because it's like everybody from California moved to Arizona. So, Tampa Blue says not songs by the band Heart, but do they know songs by heart? The expression. Interesting. I like that. That's an interesting way. I read it that way. Okay, so curious to say how many songs they know by heart can play at the drop of. That's interesting. So do me a favor, if you could, put in the comments a number, especially on the replay, how many songs you know by heart. In other words, how many can you recite off memory? I don't know how many songs. And let's be fair. He said songs. I'm going to keep him to his question, even though a lot of times people really mean riffs. I know hundreds of riffs. I can fake 4 bars of anything. So, but how many songs do you know by heart? How many songs can you actually play? Not even complete, but just most, right? So yeah, like I said, I'm curious to see. Josh said probably 5. I'll read a couple just because it's the end of the show. About 20. 3. Yeah, if I was going to say, like right now, I would probably say probably at 10 or 15. I probably know 10 or 15 songs that I can actually recite and play without any kind of reference. I've been this way my whole life. I learned songs and then I do them and then I stop because I'm not doing them for whatever reason and they just go away. And then I need a reference again. So a lot of you guys are saying 50. Look at that. More than I ever thought. I was going to say, like, I thought I was on the high end. Steven said 140-ish. That's a lot of songs. So, all right. On that note, we went long today. As always, I want to thank you guys for hanging out. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Next week's show is at the same time, same channel. However, if you know, we're starting a new tradition this year. We started on New Year's Eve, which is we're going to drink a beverage on the last show of every month. And I suggested to you guys, or we got a suggestion that we should do some kind of rock, not rock, but musician's drink. So I'm proud to say somebody has sent me some Rush beer, and so that will be coming soon. And I did get some wine from Maynard, from Tool of Maynard, so that will be one. But this Friday being next week's show, will be the Trooper, the beer from Iron Maiden, is what I'll be drinking and trying. And so every last show, I'll be trying a new adult beverage from one of our favorite musicians and sharing with you. And so when we do the QA, I'll tell you what I think of it as we go through. And if I like it, maybe I'll drink more. And if I don't like it, I guess I'll drink it warm like I did last time. And and yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy that. I thought it'd be fun and give us something to look forward to at the end of the month. As always, guys, I want to thank you so much for your time today, hanging out for the show. And until next week, know your gear. And if you want to get a Trooper beer from Iron Maiden Trooper beer and have it for the show next week, you can do that. And you can drink it with me. All right. Thank you guys and have a great weekend.